It's Brittany, bitch, and I am back. Hello, and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I am your host, Brett Beck, and I am back this week, back to my sacred grounds. You know, this is like second home to me. You know, like I missed it a little bit. I felt like whenever I was editing the episode, I felt like a dude in the cuck chair. Like, yeah, Joe, you you stick it in my podcast. And here I am, joined as always by the man who made sure that in my need of an absence that the show could go on, Mr. Chris Figs. Chris, how are you this week? Because I want to tell you, last week it was really interesting watching how you chose to intro the show.
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm doing well. Not that busy, you know, the typical life stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't have to get too much into it, but for anybody who's been in the Discord, I've divulged a little. There was a lot of personal stuff going on, family stuff going on. I guess the family and personal were mostly mixed, but some of it was my family, some of it was my family-in-law. And then just a lot of work stuff going on. So Chris thankfully handled me needing to have a little day off because something I had to handle fell at the exact time we should have been recording. So instead of trying to push off and find when we could do it later, I think Joe came over here and graciously, for the third time now, took the spot of someone on the podcast. So one of these days we'll have to work to have him back where we can have a good old-fashioned threesome. But I am back this week, and if you are unfamiliar with us, we are a PlayStation podcast who looks at the gaming industry, through the lens of primarily being PlayStation fans, though if something comes out on another platform and we find the means, we play it when we want to. Or as Chris said, we like fucking PlayStation, so we play on PlayStation, and if you don't like that, figure it out. It's funny that we say that, though, because I have played so little PlayStation in the last month. Actually, I went a full month without turning my PlayStation on, which acts as a perfect segue for us to move into the first topic of the show, like we always do, which is checking in on what we've been playing so that we can give you guys an idea of what we think you should be playing, what we think you should steer clear of, or just kind of give you some insights into games you've been maybe interested in or have never heard of, to see if it should be or should not be on your radar. So, Chris, I noticed that in the document that you've worked up here, thank you, that you have a nice crisp nothing. But I also know that part of the reason that you have nothing on here is because you spent an entire episode last week talking about a lot of Marathon. And I know that your nothing is really just Christenese for multiple hours, just decades of hours worth of Marathon.
Yeah. I mean,
so while you may not want to talk about Marathon, what I do want to talk about is actually something a little different, which is what has basically being the exact opposite of what you normally do. How has it felt to not be bouncing around to game to game to game to game to game? Or have you still been doing that? It's just not enough to reference in the fact that you've still just been smashing out some Marathon.
I will say, like, I want to talk about Marathon, but it's kind of painful to talk about Marathon at this point. Not for, you know, like talking about like what happens after I seem to talk about Marathon in a positive way has been kind of exhausting.
So you're talking about like the discourse around it online?
Yeah, it's the first game I've ever liked that I feel like I'm constantly being asked to justify why I like it, and it's like, you know, I can tweet. I have fucking 100 followers, and like I'll tweet a picture of a Marathon or a video. And then I get a Steam chart. I'm like, I don't give a fuck about the Steam chart. Like, and it's like I've had interactions with people all over online where it's like, oh, well, why? And it's like asking me to explain myself. And it's like, if I said, oh, I like Crimson Desert, I wouldn't have to explain myself. And it's gotten to a point where it's like, Marathon is some of the most fun I've had playing games in a very long time. And I don't want to discuss it with you. Not like with you, but I don't want to talk about it on the podcast. And
yeah, which is interesting because I'm gonna give you I'm going to give you an easy out because I can completely understand that. But we did have a question that I did not pose to you last week because it was you and Joe. Though maybe I could have. Maybe it would have been the better spot to put it. But Big Box 1431, he's a notorious for being a big defender of games as a service style games, which I think we both would agree Marathon falls into. I'm going to read out what he said, and if you would rather not because of how you're feeling, that's okay. Or if you'd like to use it to kind of use it as a springboard to talk about the discourse that you're seeing around it, because I don't think he means anything negative around it so much as he believes something off of what he's seeing, and it's likely, like you said, this SteamDB chart that people are utilizing. So he says, while I strongly disagree with Chris's take on Marathon, that it offers more player freedom than Arc Raiders, I will still defend his First Amendment right to say it. Now, I am curious if Chris, Brett too, of course, was contracted by Bungie to consult on Marathon's player retention woes. Where would you start? Any recommendations? One of the things I want to note is that the question does have baked into it a idea that the game is experiencing player retention problems, which I cannot say to be true or not. I don't know. I think that you could look at like Arc Raiders, which I did see you tweet the other day, that there was somebody who threw up a SteamDB chart being like new trials. Well, your new trial is to figure out how to fix your your plummeting player base, and all it showed was the game that clearly hit a peak like 2 months ago, returning to what was kind of a normal player count before it blew up again, and calling that to be a big deal. Before we even start with the question, all I do want to ask is, do you actually think, as someone who's experiencing the game, playing the game, and does spend some time talking about it online and posting about it, do you think that there is actually any player retention woes?
I feel like that's a loaded question in a way. Honestly, no. Like, that's just my honest answer. No. I think I can't remember. It was one of the podcasts I listened to. They were talking about it where like Marathon has supposedly through, I guess Reese Elliott had said it, and it was regurgitated by another podcaster, but that he was saying that 200,000 people play Marathon every day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that's not in your little snapshot of the 30 seconds that it took you to make the tweet. Not this guy specifically, but if you're looking at Steam charts. But I kind of feel like the discourse around Marathon is dishonest. Like 20 to 30,000 people and hovering in that mark tells me that the people who like Marathon and want to play it stuck with it. If you peak at 88K and a lot of those people, that's a big number to peak at and it's a big number to fall from. But people acting like there's a player retention problem when, if you look at this charts, it's consistently, let's say, low end 10K to top end 27. That's called player retention. I play Marathon every day. I have 140 hours in Marathon. You know what I also do? Work 50 hours a week.
Yeah.
Jerk off. Sleep.
Just for anybody who wants there's an important piece of information here that is, again, just observation. It's just information. And it's also different games in different parts of their life, because Arc Raiders has been out for like 9 months at this point, somewhere around there. 7 to 9 months. So Arc Raiders currently, if we just want to compare the two, is at a 90,943 24-hour peak. Mm-hmm. And right now, Marathon is at a 19,362 24-hour peak. And what I'd say is, like, if you look in general, it has very consistent looking numbers. It has plummeted, as you said, all-time peak 88,000. But plummeted sounds negative.
For some
loaded,
context, right? Could you give us what Arc Raiders' peak was?
497,000.
Brett, if you do a little paper math, Arc Raiders has lost more players than Marathon. Is Arc Raiders dead?
So legitimately, and that's important to say, right? Because like
Arc Raiders has lost more.
No, agreed. So I think it's 481,000. I knew it was close to 479. All that said, I do think it's interesting, because I do think first and foremost, I think we have also said on the show and agree that Arc Raiders, because of its choice and design with moving towards player-based or aggression-based matchmaking, is probably a little bit better for casual. So I do think that I would expect to see, and I would predict that Arc Raiders would generally have a higher player count than Marathon. I don't think that means Marathon's doing anything wrong or doing poorly. nor do we know what that looks like to them. So I think that's interesting to note there. But secondarily, we're also looking at a game that is months into and has experienced a huge ramp up. We're not even 2 months into Marathon at this point.
Mhm.
So that is kind of an interesting thing to look at. And I don't know. I do think it's just one of those interesting things to where good on Arc, they're doing a lot that's well, but I think that there's a lot of things pushing Arc in favor of being a game that would stand to have a bigger player base. But I don't think that means anything negative about that. So first thing I want to do is if you feel like answering the question at all, I think the way I would change it is instead of it being player retention woes, just in general, if you were in general contracted to consult on Marathon and just approaching player retention, whether or not it's considered good, bad, or anything, how would you actually look at player retention and how to improve it in your experience with the game? I haven't played enough. I don't know if I feel confident in saying anything on this. I've played it. I think that it does what it's trying to do really well. And I think it seems to really know what it's trying to do. I just don't know how that's speaking to a player base that they were hoping it would speak to. So that's about as much as I can honestly say about the game. I don't really have any further opinion.
I don't know.
You keep coming back, so it seems like at least for you, the player retention is great.
Part of the thing with like these last 2 weeks is we'll just be honest about my list. My list is Mouse PI, Vampire Crawlers, Saint Slayer, and Hades. I've played 20 minutes of each game because I launch each of them and go back to Marathon.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to say. I don't know. It's hard because I think there needs to be some push towards casuals, and I think the sponsored kit mode is a good band-aid for that. But I think part of the problem, and I think this is some of Bungie's fault, but it's also the player base's fault, is, and I don't want to sound flippant of anyone's opinion when you say this, but when you actually have experience in Marathon, and anyone who plays these type of games will tell you, experience is not 20 hours. I know that sounds ridiculous to some people, but that's not experience with Marathon. You, for all intents and purposes, with all due respect to you, could have, for the purposes of really discussing the nitty gritty, you've never played it.
No, agreed.
And
agreed.
So that's even like when he says like, oh, Marathon has less player freedom than Arc. It doesn't. It's abundant. Actually, clearly does not. Arc does not have more player freedom than Marathon. Very clearly doesn't. There is so much stuff in Marathon that you can choose to do that Arc doesn't even think about letting you do. Right? There are no in-game, in-map events in Arc. There are no, you can go this way. You can build your character to be this, right? Just the fact that there are character builds in Marathon is more player freedom than Arc Raiders, right? Like in Arc Raiders, you're just a dude. It just depends on what you look like. That's your character freedom in Arc Raiders. So I think the
way that they view it, right, to be charitable to that mindset, I think the viewpoint there, and this really just comes down to what you view as freedom, right? I think that's always in any given thing. It's what do you mean by freedom and what versions of freedom are important to you. Just to quickly go on there, I think there are character builds in Arc insofar as you're free to build out if you want your guy to be hardier or if you want him to be more mobile and fast or if you want him to be able to do more. But I do understand what you mean in that they're a lot less specialized than what it's like comparing Bloodborne to Dark Souls, right? Like Bloodborne does have builds. There's just far less of them than Dark Souls, right? Like Dark Souls 3 has so many builds because there's a lot more armor, weapons, and stats for you to consider and deal with than what Bloodborne has. And that's okay. It's just they're approaching different things.
People are going to think this sounds ridiculous, but like follow it for a second, right? Mm-hmm. Arc Raiders is closer to the Surge than Marathon is to Elden Ring. I would argue that in terms of the way Marathon, like the Surge lets you build characters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's not really that. It's like, yeah, there's small differences and small changes you can make to it. And I haven't played the Surge in a long time. For all I know, I'm missing some stuff, but you at least kind of understand.
I think I remember what you're talking about right there. Like you can get parts from people and slot them into your slightly cybernetic body to
Right.
and I get what you mean, because I think a lot of games do this and do it well, but it's the illusion of freedom, right?
Exactly.
There is some choice and there's some freedom, but it's mainly to make you feel like you're doing something.
Right. And then when you go into something like, I said Elden Ring, but actually Lies of P is the better example, right? Marathon is Lies of P, where you go, I have this gun with this head implant, with this torso implant, with this head implant that all work with this gun that do for this purpose. This is what I'm going for. There's nothing in Arc Raiders like that. It's like, oh, do I want to open loot faster or do I want to get the cool loot? Like that's the character builds in Arc Raiders, right? And in Marathon, you could build a stealth character, you could build a knife character, you could build someone who's going to go for shotguns, you could build a character that's entirely about killing the PvE enemies, right? And then, not to mention, you go into Outpost, right? Outpost is the end game map. And you guys have the decision. Okay, are we going to go get all the master key cards so that when someone opens Pinwheel, well, they don't have the master card, so we can get the high-end loot, but now we know we're going to have to contest with these guys because we're spending our time getting different keys than they are. So they're going to say, fuck it, we're just going into Pinwheel. We're gonna open up Command Wing, get the best loot, and we're going to get the fuck out. Whereas, me and Joe the other day, we played a game with this guy who was like, we're going for all the red cards and we'll get into Pinwheel later. We got all the red cards, went into Pinwheel later, fought 4 teams and got out with the good loot, right? But that was like an entire decision that we made about how we were going to attack that map, right? And you get those same things when Kev has a quest and Joe and I are just looking to bathe in the blood of our enemies, right?
Yeah.
We can do both of those things, but we also know, like, okay, Kev wants to get his quest done. We have to go this way. We're going to do this thing, and we're going to get out because his quest actually tells us we have to exfil and we have to do this all in one run. So we're going to focus on this. So, okay, we're going to take this loot. The other day, we all went into Perimeter with purple shields, kitted to fuck because I had a gold key card. Right. So I was not willing to lose it. I didn't even want to play with them for the gold key card, but I wanted the protection, right? Because I'm selfish. And that's kind of the thing, to me in Arc Raiders, it was always, it changed to a degree, but what Arc Raiders boiled down to me was we're going to run to lobby on Stella and win or lose. And that's what we're doing. And there was we're going to do the anomaly on Dire Marsh, or we're going to go in kitted for the lockdown, and we're going to do this entire other set of mechanics that no other part of this game has, and we're going to be rewarded for it. Or we're going to go into Cryo Archive with these 7 keys that we've found after looting the entire other maps, and we found these 7 keys. And now we're going into Cryo Archive. We're kitted out of our minds, and we're hitting the loot rooms so that we can go fight the compiler. And the whole thing with that even is you don't have to fight the compiler. Joe, Kev, and I did 2 rooms of Cryo Archive and got the fuck out. Like,
all right, Chris, let me reel you in for a second, because I can tell I get what you're getting at, but I do want to reel you in. If you have to talk about those things, right? I get what you're saying, and I get what you're going through, but in quickly getting to the point of just out of curiosity, even for me, if Bungie came to you and said, "Hey, you've been playing Bungie, or you've been playing Marathon, you love it, you're having a good time, you keep coming back," for players that aren't, what would you suggest we could do that would A, keep the people who are currently happy and coming back in that position, and B, maybe do a better job of retaining the people who are leaving? What would be like a couple of quick key points where you can kind of go, with my experience with the game and with my knowledge of what it can do and can be, here's an idea or a couple in which I would approach doing it with? Because I agree. I would also say, and if you noticed in my wording, I said it seems to know what it's doing, because I got a taste of it. I played for 3 hours or whatever it was that night, but I understand that was the most vertical of slices I could have experienced, just because I agree. And it's a good thing towards a conversation I had this morning with a coworker who recently bought Arc Raiders, called me first thing in the morning and said, "Hey, did you platinum Arc Raiders?" I said, "Yeah."
Sometimes smart technology just doesn't need to be as smart. I adjusted my headphones, and then Spotify on my phone starts playing. I'm like, I'm not even connected to my phone.
Yep. So he said, "You're fine." He said, did you play Arc Raiders? I said, yeah. He goes, how? So here's the thing. He played all weekend and into the next. So he's played like 15 to 20 hours, and he's not good at the game because you can't be good at Arc Raiders in 15 to 20 hours. Definitely if you're coming off of a completely different game. And he plays Call of Duty mostly. So there's so many things that are different that are coming over. So it's interesting to see. But with that in mind, how would you approach player retention? And I think the cool thing to ask about people who are currently enjoying the game and liking it is that you can try and get a model that both works for the people who are already feeling like the game does a great job at retaining them, while also making sure that you introduce things that don't detract from their enjoyment of the game, or at least minimally.
I mean, the thing is, like, the honest answer is, like, I don't really know, because
that's fair.
I think part of Marathon's problem is that the well is poisoned, right?
Oh yeah, like the which I get where you're coming from, and you might well be right, but I also think that people thought that about High Guard, and that the only reason that game failed is because Jeff blew it up in the front of too many people, and then everybody shit on it for being the final game shown at the thing, and it poisoned the well. And again, maybe that's actually true. I don't think so. I think High Guard would have had the same fate, honestly speaking, no matter how it had been shown.
Yeah, but it would have had the same fate. But I think, maybe I'm naive, but I think the developers would tell you they would rather have had this same fate where 100,000 people on Steam played the game.
Agreed. I mean, if I spent that much time making something, I'd rather go 100,000 people played it than 10,000 people played it and it still failed.
The thing with High Guard and Jeff, right, is that High Guard would have just been gone. It would have come out and nobody would have cared. It would have been a fart in the wind, right? So you can blame Jeff or not, but he put it out. He gave it an audience.
It, right?
He platformed it. Yeah. Thank you. I'll use an example to kind of make my point, and I'm not trying to call you out, Ryan. This is just a conversation that we had, right? But me and him were talking about Marathon, and, you know, on Twitter. And again, he'll tell you he will never fucking touch the game, right? And then he says something to me, and my argument was that you shouldn't really be discussing Marathon if you haven't talked about it. And then a little bit into the conversation, I'm like, Marathon is actually it doesn't ask a lot of you. There's free kits in the game. And he goes, I don't know what that means. And I went, it fucking exactly. Right, you're telling people, right? Because he said it to me. He's like, "Oh well, I had a bunch of people talk about Marathon to me, and I don't think they'll be picking it up. It asks a lot of you." And I'm like, with all due respect, you just lied to those people. You could play Marathon with nothing in your vault for 100 hours. It asks you for nothing. I don't know if
he's saying he lied. I think what he's saying is the conversation led to this. But I get what you mean, and I do think that there are people who are actually going around and having conversations like that, and possibly scaring people away from it. And unfortunately, it's like Arc is having the opposite, right? Everybody's just going to Arc and be like, you should hop in, you'll have fun. And Marathon's not getting that treatment for whatever reason.
Well, it's, you know, and that's why I'm specifically trying to say I'm not calling him out. The well has been poisoned to the point that he just inherently thinks Marathon asks more of you. And I would argue that between the two games we're discussing with free kit systems, Marathon asks less of you because you know what you're going into every day. We knew yesterday that yesterday was Arachne kits. I'm not using a fucking LMG ever. So you know what we didn't run? Sponsored kits. You know what happens in Arc Raiders? Oh, we're playing Stella and I spawned in with a Pharaoh. Oh, Rattler, nothing I can do now, you know?
I will say, look, I agree with you, but one of the things I will say is I think that, and I think you might even actually agree with this, I think the heart of what you're saying could be true. Again, haven't played enough Marathon to know for sure. But I will say Marathon seems, at the very least, seems like there's a lot more for you to have to consider. And it feels like if you're a person who considers something having a large depth of options like that to be off-putting or nerve-wracking or just something that you kind of get decision paralysis over, I think Marathon appears at first glance to, I don't want to say ask more of you, but there's a little bit more that you have to consider before you jump into a match. And I think Arc, at least, again, I didn't play Arc until like, what, 2 or 3 months after it came out. It wasn't
Mhm.
it wasn't at launch. It was a little bit later. So I don't know how akin Arc may have been day one, but I have a strong suspicion Arc was pretty well close to what I played day one. And I think Arc is it feels easier to hop in and get going in the game, even though I agree with you that once you're in the map, you still don't know what the fuck you're doing and you have so much to learn. But it feels approachable, even though in many ways it's not. Because you know what happens almost anytime I get somebody to play Arc, or somebody starts playing Arc and realizes I've played it, I get asked 80 million fucking questions about what do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know what the game wants me to do. I try to level my things up. That's exactly the conversation I have with my coworker, right? Is this question of like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, yeah, you don't really know what to do in Call of Duty either, but the only goal in Call of Duty is just to kill your enemy. So there's not a lot more to go off of. I mean, like, it's a singular goal, so it's easy. Win. That's the goal. But that's not exactly the goal in Marathon or Arc, realistically. And so it's interesting. So
I think
it's hard to say. I think that you're ultimately right in the fact that there are going to be people who think it's asking for more. I don't know that it is, but I think the vision of it when you look at it is that it is. And I don't know if that's this is something that's not talked about a lot in games. And actually, there's a lot of games with bad UX, which is user experience. And I'm not saying Marathon has bad UX. I have not played enough to know that.
I think that would be objectively
but
false.
a really good example of a game that has great UX, and I think it's so inviting, and you'll love this. Balatro has probably the best user experience of any game I have ever played. Mm-hmm. It is so easy to get into and play, and every decision about the way that the game structures its menus and everything, you can tell, was painstakingly considered. How will someone who maybe doesn't even play games at all experience this? Where do we place the play button on the home screen? Where do we place the big blinds? How do we make someone feel? Do we let them know the score, or do we make them excited by showing them the multipliers and the things, and then let the score come as a surprise at the end? You have a rough idea. Definitely the more you play the game, but there's little decisions like that that make Balatro's UX and by extension its UI really good. And I wonder if games like Arc and Marathon, if sometimes all it comes down to is that their particular brand of UX or UI feels more inviting, even if it's not actually. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the same thing we talked about with the illusion of freedom. Is it the illusion that Arc is easier to get into, even though once you start, it's not?
Yes, because Arc is not easier to get into. The community is easier to deal with.
Oh,
that is it.
Interesting.
It is only I mean, again, I love Arc. Like, if KCD 2 hadn't come out last year, it would have been my game of the year. And there were moments last year where it was over KCD 2.
Arc is awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm more or less done playing Arc. I'll play it if someone wants me to, but like, that game's awesome.
Yeah, and but the biggest thing, I lost the plot a little bit, but my point is, right, Marathon has put me in a position where I can send to me the funniest texts, right? Like, I sent a text to Joe yesterday that was just, are we going to revel in bloodshed tonight? Right? Like, and that's the type of like players we are, right? And like that me and Sean were kind of like that. You definitely didn't play Arc that way. But like I did to a degree until I started to feel like it's just not worth playing this way. But what I think the thing that separates in people's mind the casual Arc Raiders versus the hardcore impossible Marathon is the player base. That is it. It is not about the games, because I'm telling you right now, spend 30 hours in Arc and spend 30 hours in Marathon. You will know what you are supposed to be doing in Marathon way before you ever do an Arc, because my goal playing Arc Raiders was to kill people and get the Platinum Trophy. My goal in Marathon is that I want to finish my codex, is that I want to see the story, is that I want to get prepared for cryo, is that I want to go in and kill as many people and bring up my Arachne rating. And I want to do my quests because my quests give me more bits of lore for the story, right? And there are cool ass characters. You saw the character introductions. Are you joking? Arc has none of that sauce, but
I get what you mean, but I feel like it's important for me to at least play slight devil's advocate because everything besides specific faction ratings, Arc has a version of it. I just think that what you're
What's the
trying
story
to
in
say, oh, it's there. It's not.
I can tell you the story of Marathon
is,
right now.
Yeah, look again. It's what I'm saying. It's all levels. Arc does have a story and it does have quests that occasionally, more often than not, but occasionally do try to world build and lore build and give you an idea of what happened and what led to it. I, again, haven't played enough Marathon to compare them, but I will, as someone who played Arc, I can tell you Arc doesn't do a good enough job putting its story front and center when it could. Agreed. But I think everything else is just what, like you said, yours was to kill people and get the platinum. I think everything else, you can do the same thing. Oh, I'm working on doing a build where I can do a matriarch run. I'm working on a build where I can do a harvester. I'm working on, like, you can do versions of everything you said in Arc. It's just different, and the motivations to do them are different.
It boils back to my point of the player base is what separates the games, not the games. That is it.
Fair enough.
Arc has feds in it, and Marathon doesn't. Arc is a game of feds, and quite frankly, like Marathon does have the same friendly systems now, especially now that they've. It's funny, but now that they've buffed Prox Chat, it's way closer to Arc than I ever expected. It's not super close, but like the biggest problem at launch with Marathon is that you have to hold Prox Chat, and now it's the same as Marathon. You just turn it on, you turn it off.
Yeah. So
that has enabled me to do, like, I like doing Rook runs, which is the solo late in the match versus other squads. And like there was a Rook run where I was running through outposts with 7 of them. You know, like It's not that it's impossible. It's just Marathon doesn't. The Marathon community doesn't force it, whereas the Arc Raiders one kind of does. And that's why the game's
apparently that's changing that. By the way, rat behavior, true rat behavior, is apparently increasing dramatically.
Good.
I've had multiple people who have played it lately being like, I've had so many people come up and be like, hey, I'm going to help you, and then help me, and then the moment that whatever it is done, kill you. This one was pretty good, and then we can move on. We have other things to talk about. My buddy Mario said that he's my coworker. He said. Somebody hit Prox Chat and they said, hey, dude, come up here. I got a gun for you. And he said, as soon as I got up to where he was at, he blasted me in the face. And then before he punched me out, he said, I said I had a gun for you. And I said, that's funny because I actually don't know if I consider that to be rat behavior. That's just clever wording.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because Marathon has added a couple like things that they're like, oh, this will help the community be friendly. They added this thing called the Mercy Kit. You know what I did the other day? I killed a Rook, revived him, shot him again, killed him, and then I stabbed him in the chest. It was fucking hilarious.
Interesting. But Chris, let's move on to something different. And you know what? You have not had a chance to play yet, but you said you've heard mixed things on, and I had too, but I'd also heard a lot of really good things. I have not had a lot of time to play games in general, but because I've got this little handheld that can be with me anywhere, I have still been able to play, thankfully, some games on the go. So I beat Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess HD, and it was great. Very good. Moved up to being one of my top Zelda games. But afterwards, I didn't know what quite to do. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to finally hop into Pokemon Legends ZA. And at first, I didn't want to because I just came off of Pokemon White, correct? So I was like, let's see what we're going to do here. The game takes so many swings away from the normal Pokemon formula. And I think it successfully takes most of the swings. And for the areas that it doesn't, it's the same weak problems they always had. They don't quite know how to fill an open world with things that are engaging for 20 hours. So even though you'd be surprised that climbing up buildings and wandering around and getting items is fun for like 10 hours, way longer than I would have expected. But the core of things that I think is really exciting, and that if they couple this back in with a more traditional Pokemon game, can lead to a really cool game like with Winds and Waves. If any of the things that they experimented with here get pulled over there and improved upon and iterated upon in a positive way, we could have a banger next game. And hopefully we won't have the Scarlet Violet problem or even the Sword and Shield problem. That was a pretty divisive game. The changes so far that are really cool that I love is full control over how you interact with Pokemon and how you evolve them. So now Pokemon do not evolve on their own because you hit the level. What happens is you have a UI element that once your Pokemon is evolved and you hit the little menu button, you'll see a little glowing up arrow showing you can evolve. And whenever you're ready, you can hit the Pokemon and hit evolve, and it starts to evolve. That way, if you want to delay evolution to learn moves quicker, you can. Secondarily, all moves are learned, and then they just move into a pool of moves that you know, just like a JRPG would be, where you have 4 moves and you can only ever have 4 moves equipped. But when you're not in combat, at any point where you're not already in a battle, you can go and change your party's moves to include things that you feel like you need for the fight that's coming up based off what you know is coming, or if there's a better move or you've learned something new. So you have that ability to change around, which is awesome. Real-time combat, and I want to say it's a bit more Final Fantasy 12 than real-time. Moves have a cooldown, and you can't do any attacks that aren't moves. They're all your 4 face buttons, and you get to actually blast them out, and depending on their power or what they do, they have a longer or shorter cooldown. Then you can Mega Evolve, which lets you use plus versions of the moves, or you can just use the Mega Evolution bar to use plus moves on people that can't even Mega Evolve, and you can do bigger versions of it. I think if you take all of that and you can actually make a more exciting world and you can refine some of the weird things that come into play from moving to real time, you can have a great game. Because, Chris, you played X and Y, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is set in the same world as X and Y, which is cool. That's just a little piece of information. But are you familiar with Aegislash?
Yeah, he's the fucking greatest Pokemon ever made.
He's so fucking cool, right? I caught an Onedge here. I evolved into Doublade, and then as I was going to evolve into Aegislash and use it, I realized that just like in the other games, Aegislash has forms, right? He'll go into defense form or attack form. The problem is, for this game, I don't think that they considered that enough because there's hundreds of Pokemon, and because everything's happening in real time, his form switch animation takes so long that often when you're using Aegislash, definitely if there's any kind of type advantage, there's a high chance he'll be killed before he's ever finished the animation so that you can start to use a move. Or you may only get 1 or so moves off before you have to switch him out for some reason. So I completely did away with him and moved to Chandelure as my fire and ghost type, which kind of bummed me out. But it's not a huge problem. It's just okay, they didn't think about how some of these changes work when you move to real time, and that's something that can be fixed. It's not a huge deal. I'm very impressed with it, and if you ever have a chance, which I don't, did you sell your Switch too?
She gone.
Yeah, I thought so. If you ever end up in a situation where you have access to Legends ZA and a chance to play it, might be worth trying out. It's pretty cool.
I'll give it a look.
Not perfect. There are problems, but it's doing a lot of cool shit. And you know the one thing, I'm actually quite liking the story in here. And one of the reasons is this game feels like it's actually got a little bit more of the Pokemon quirky nature that was kind of like Gen 3, 4, and 5 coming back around, where like sometimes the characters are just being kind of like, if you were taking them seriously, you'd be like, this is kind of dumb. But at least in the world of Pokemon, you're like, they're doing it so earnestly and there's just kind of quirky and it works. And I've enjoyed that element.
Nice.
So quite like that. But Chris, after a month, turned my PlayStation 5 back on, right? My PS5 Pro. And I go to load into Resident Evil 8 VR. And before I even hit the game, it's like I woke up a vampire that had been sleeping for like 30 years. Because like I turn it on and it like, you know, like it's like
yeah.
But I turn it on and it's over here just like and I was like, well, that's never made that sound before in the entire time I've owned this console, and I'm not even in a game. And it's done it one other time, again, in the main menu. So I feel like construction shit going on and whatnot, I feel like it sat there and it got some dust in it. I may need to take it apart and clean it.
Am I making up that the menu runs at an uncapped frame rate, so it might just be that?
Oh, I don't know. That possibly, but that'd be, if it was uncapped frame rate, you'd see screen tearing all over that fucking thing.
It might not be
if you don't have a VR menu.
Screen. I feel like I remember a game where that was an issue, where it was really loud in the menu because the menu was uncapped, but everything else was fine.
I can believe that. That's kind of crazy, but I can believe that. I mean, hell, a lot of games that are not even 60 frames per second move to 60 frames per second in the menu because it feels better. Mm-hmm. And it's easier to do in the menu than it is while generating real stuff. But Chris, you know what? I have played Resident Evil 8 VR.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, dude, Resident Evil 8 is fucking awesome, first of all. It's really good. And we've talked a little bit about it. It's been so interesting playing this game where it's they're not hiding it either. It's clearly wearing its inspiration on its sleeve. But I think I told you the whole like first 4 hours of the game just feel like we're doing Resident Evil 4, but in first person and a little different. And that's not a complaint at all. It's just interesting because I know that they marketed it kind of similarly and it's got like a similar visuals tone to it. But as I actually started playing it, I was like, oh shit. Like they're doing like everything they can think of. Like at first I was thinking the medallions, but it's been a while since I played 4. Didn't 4 have like those little tablets that you could break?
Yeah, like the blue medallions that were hanging around.
No, I knew the blue medallions because if you shot all of them, the merchant gave you the free gun that could shoot. It had penetration. It'd shoot through the first person.
I think you're talking about 5.
I might be. But so my first thought was medallions, but in talking to a friend, they started talking about, they're like, well, I thought there was something else in 4. And I was like, But the little goats in the game that you can break, I was thinking, oh, this is like the medallions. If you break them all, you pay attention, you find them, something happens, which I thought was a cool little feature. Just the way that the village operates and how it kind of ties back around, I thought was interesting. It's like a cool mix between 7 and 4. And I'm really enjoying that. I do have a question, though. You've played Resident Evil 8 enough times. Did you get to platinum in it?
No, I have not.
Yet. I think you can answer this for me, though, pretty well. One of the things that you said when I asked if you tried Resident Evil 8 in VR, you said you either did 8 or 4, but you can't remember which one. And you said you only played it for a little bit and you turned it off because you felt like it wasn't the ideal way for you to play the game.
Right.
Is that a pretty good representation of what you were trying
accurate.
to get at? And I think what you meant is like you were saying like the reloading, right? Like having to like dump the clip, pick the clip up, put it in there, rack the gun, all these things that you don't have to do in flat panel version. And you're right. That does make everything that involves the guns more complicated because to get the guns, you have to like know where they're at. Like the sniper rifles behind your back, low, the shotguns behind your back, high. You can change where they're at, by the way, which is pretty neat. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about, you can confirm for me, I know the knife is in the normal game, just like in 4. But in Resident Evil 8, with the knife, when you're playing at flat panel, can you throw the knife?
I never did.
I don't believe that you can. This feels like an aspect of it would be weird in VR if you couldn't, so they included it in VR. Let me tell you how this game has gone for me so far. I have so much ammo right now. Because what I realized once I got to the castle is I was doing something. Whenever I'm walking around sometimes in the game, I'll just stop and fuck around with VR to have fun. I was pulling the knife out of the sheath and like throwing it up and then catching it and trying to see if I could catch it right. And sometimes I'd miss and sometimes I wouldn't catch the handle right. But I was doing that. And I saw a pot over there and I was just kind of fucking around and I threw it and it broke the pot. And I said, oh my God, can I throw the knife at enemies? And so the next time that one of it was actually one of the dead people in I don't want to speak too much to the game. I don't want to spoil it, but in the castle, the enemies in the castle that you come across, one of them popped up and I was like, I'm just going to see. I'm curious. And so I threw the knife and it hit it. And I was like, I can't tell if it actually did damage or if it was just like an animation to say that an interaction happened. So I was like, we'll keep going. So I'm just over here in VR pulling a knife and go, whoosh, 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 whoosh. And by the time it got to me, it got to me and I pulled the knife out and I just stabbed it and it fell to the ground and I stabbed it one more time and I killed it. And I have almost exclusively killed things with the knife in this game. So I walk outside of the castle in the part where you can get onto the roof of it. And then there's the flying motherfuckers. I had just gotten the sniper rifle. Clearly, it's an opportunity for you to try the sniper rifle. So I crack a shot off of the one perched on the thing and then I go, wait, can I throw the knife at the flying ones? And so I get close to them, wait for them to aggro onto me, and then I start throwing it. And eventually they fall, and they try to get back up, and I just walk over there and start stabbing them. And I have had so much fucking fun stabbing people and basically keeping my resources way better because I have such control of how to keep distance without having to spend resources because the knife is limitless. So I agree with you. In one aspect, the firearm combat is cooler in my opinion, but more complicated.
That's it, yeah.
But the game does give me the ability to supplant that and go, while this may be harder, here's an extra element that you don't have in a flat panel. And that has made the game so much better for me.
How much can you interact with the world around you?
So now you're touching on, I don't want to call it a complaint because I don't truly think of it as one, but there's times where you can interact with stuff in such a way where you kind of go, oh, dude, like this is a VR experience. And then there's a few times where it's like, oh, the world just kind of didn't expect it, but it's mostly great. So like, example, the castle, you have the shelves that have glass fronts and you can see that there's something inside of it, right? There's gunpowder, there's ammo, there's a whatever. Sure. You just walk up to it, take your fist, and if you just move your hand over it, your hand will phase through the glass because in case you're not trying to break it. But as long as you grip any part of the controller, you can either grip it to where you have one finger pointing out or just grip it entirely to make a fist. If you punch the glass, it'll break and you can just reach in there and grab the ammo. And then whenever you let go, it just goes into your inventory, which is awesome. I love that.
What I was going to ask, what I was thinking of, right? Could you not just play that whole game with a knife and like grab an enemy and then stab him a bunch of times and like toss him to the side and then do that again?
You can't grab the enemies. That where sucks. It falls apart. And I've chosen not to look it up.
It makes sense because it would be too easy.
I think so too. But also maybe not, because I'll tell you, there's a part. Okay, I cleared the castle, right, and now you have a lot more ability to explore the village and do some things that you couldn't do your first time through it. And there's this enemy that comes up with armor, and I thought, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just keep throwing knives at him. And at first I was like, this isn't gonna work. But then I threw a knife at his head, and I kept throwing at his head, and eventually his helmet popped off, and I thought maybe I can do it. You can. It's not ideal because it takes way too long, but. It's been interesting seeing how the game lets you do these things because in a way it's terrifying to let something that close up on you. Like when the lichens come up on me, when I started throwing knives at them, they're so much more aggressive that if I wasn't careful, they'd get on me and grab me and hurt me. And then it was kind of like fucking up my idea, right? But it still does work in practice. It's just sometimes you got to stop grabbing the knife and throwing it to create some distance between you and the enemy to start going again. But I don't know if I'd want to grab those motherfuckers, if I'm being honest. But at the same time, it would be neat. All that said is I'm curious to see what the Resident Evil 4 VR mode looks like when I get around to it, because I want to see if it's better or not, because Resident Evil 4 was exclusive, if I'm not mistaken, to current gen consoles, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Whereas Resident Evil 8 is fundamentally a PS4 game.
Yes, true.
And so I'm curious to see, first and foremost, Resident Evil 8 looks so good in VR. I actually can't believe it. You know the bitch who like walks around with the cane, like old lady, and she's like, ah, ha, ha. She looks so good in the game. Like I look at her and I'm like, I can like almost see your pores. This is, and it's in 3D. This is weird. It's pretty cool. So I am curious to see what 4 looks like, or if 4 is going to feel like that 4 VR, the OG 4 VR version that'll let you play in the Quest. I'm curious to see the difference between the two. But either way, it's nice to play a game with these production values and this kind of level of detail, not necessarily in the graphics, even though definitely in the graphics. But I feel like most VR games don't get to be this meticulous in their game design. And it's both really cool that when VR gets the opportunity to do this, it's super good. But more often than not, since VR is a limited audience, you only get these types of experience when they're VR modes, but not fully VR. And even though I think Resident Evil 8 does a great job at feeling like it was made for VR most of the time, there's a few times where you're like, this is not, I don't want to call it an afterthought, but this is secondary. This is not primary, because Resident Evil 8 VR is not Half-Life Alyx.
Fair.
But it gets close, and it's ultimately a better game than most VR games because of the fact that it is a flat panel game. And so it's made with the budget of a flat panel game because it doesn't have to rely on VR market. It's really weird.
Yeah. I don't know. VR is cool. I just remember playing it, and it was like in my head, it was like, oh, this combat's cool. And then you do all the reloading. I'm like, 2 enemies surround me, and I'm over this, So that was kind of why I gave it up. But it sounds like a lot of fun. I'd like to play it.
It is.
in
The
that
game's a
way.
lot harder. I'll give you that. Like the game is more difficult in VR. It just
Like
is.
I couldn't imagine I couldn't imagine doing a platinum run on RE8
In VR?
entirely in VR.
Dude, now you kind of got me curious to see how plausible it is.
I mean, you could. It's just like I don't like. There's some stuff like doing. I wonder if okay. What is the run speed? The normal run speed, or like, is it any fat? Like,
Honestly, I don't know the answer. I haven't played the game in flat screen at all yet.
Because I know it's a dumb question because you don't use your legs really, but like in my head, it's like, can I move faster through the game? So like mercenaries mode is easier because I can always move a little bit quicker.
Oh, maybe, dude.
I would bet
Maybe the speed
like
run
that,
if it does move quicker.
Yeah, if I again, because I'm thinking about you as a person, like, oh, I can run faster, but you can't. Because I'm thinking like in mercenaries mode, like you'd have a better perception, so you could see like one of the problems I have, which is why I don't know if I'll ever platinum that game, is like you have to get combos in mercenary mode, and like if you miss one enemy, like you lose that combo, obviously. So you'll like miss them off into the sides, and like they're laying on the ground or whatever. So I'm wondering if it would help.
Literally,
with
not like
that.
you miss a shot or something. Like literally, you don't find the enemy.
No, yeah, like literally, I know the first map pretty well, and then the first map in mercenaries mode, there's a place in like the like underground tunnel you go through, right near the beginning. It's that level is the first level of mercenaries, the underground area, and like where there are all those cots.
Yeah,
there's an enemy in mercenaries that's hidden under the cots. But you can't see him when you go to that room. So, and like the way that mercenaries works is like if you want to kill every enemy on the map, you would have to go all the way back from the ending to that spot because it would be like 38 out of 39, and you have to find that enemy. So I'm wondering if VR would help there. I don't know how the hell you would do a professional run, but if you're platinuming a Resident Evil game, you have an unlimited rocket launcher or an unlimited pistol or whatever it is, so you're fine.
True.
It would probably be pretty easy. It would probably be just as easy on VR. It'd be like, I feel like your first playthrough would be really hard. You're like, oh yeah, I've got an unlimited M84 or whatever it is. I'm just mowing through everyone.
I'll tell you what's been really neat is that I think that it's pretty clear from playing the game that if I were playing this flat screen, this game is not as scary as 7. And it's not necessarily trying to be as horror focused as 7 was. But in VR, it's kind of hard to not be like, oh my fucking God, like, at a few things. But one of the things I thought was cool was like, and I'm curious to see if the game is going to continue to kind of iterate on this in weird ways, and almost like, is there a chance that 8 may feel like Resident Evil through the ages? Because like the beginning of the game feels an awful lot like 4, and I'm curious to see if some of these other areas may feel like microcosms of other games, because I feel like the castle and Lady D in particular, and even the daughters, feels like a microcosm of 7 and the house in 7. It's not the house in 7 because 7 takes so much more place in that house, but it feels similar to it, to the point where I kind of got, I won't say lost, but like I've been playing the game for 4 hours already, a little over 4 hours, and I do a lot more exploration, but also I've had a similar moment to like my Resident Evil 7 VR where, when Jack is like patrolling the area and I'm over here hiding because I don't want him to see me. I've done the same thing with Lady D where she's like walking up and I'm like, fuck. And I hide behind a statue and I'm just like crouched over there like, can she see me? And I'm like, I'm kind of looking around. And I think that that's so much more effective in VR, even though in the case of 7, I was surprised by how much the flat panel version still kind of got me. But here's the big difference between 8 VR. Since 8 VR is on PSVR 2 and it has full hand control and you actually get to feel like you're in the world, the immersion of 8 is a lot higher because your hands aren't on a controller. They're not on a DualShock 4 or a DualSense. They're on things that pay attention to what your hands are doing. And if I let go of all the capacitive buttons on the controller, my hands are open in game. And if I close my palm and leave a finger pointed, it does it in the game. And that seems like such a small thing, but it does make you more immersed. And so when Lady D scoops you up and like stares in the face and calls you a dirty man thing, it's that much more terrifying and that much more hot, if I'm being honest. So it's interesting to see how it's going. So I'm super excited to finally be playing Resident Evil 8. And as I'm playing it, I'm like, why the fuck did I wait so long to play this? And I know the answer is because I was waiting on VR. And equally, I think that my choice to play VR is part of what's strengthening the way I feel about it and that it was worth waiting. I know that there's no way for me to compare. I can't play flat screen after this and go, does it feel worth it? Because I've already played it in VR and that was my first experience with the game. But I'm having a blast. I'm ready to play more. When we get done here, if I have enough time, I'm hopping the fuck back in and going to keep going because we're going to, what is it, House Bienvenita or whatever. I'm going to the doll maker's house. And conventional wisdom would tell me this should be the scariest part of the game, just by nature of the tone that you would imagine a doll maker's house would set. But I'm ready to be excited. So we'll see. And then Chris, maybe I can move on to the Resident Evil 4 you sent me finally.
Oh my God, fuck that. Play the actual game I want you to play.
To throw that out there, Chris, I did start KCD2, as you saw, and the next day, the fucking world ended. I know that's not really, but you know.
Yeah.
Then I started it, I'm like, this is going to be a good day. And it's like, your grandmother-in-law died. Fuck.
Yeah.
You know, real quick, KCDR 2 is an interesting game. Like, again, I can't talk about it in spades, but I played an hour at lunch that day, and man, that game does a lot of things. I don't mean in like the Crimson Desert way. It's very different, but I am surprised at what the game's shooting for often. And it's clearly really well made. And I can't say that it's a great game yet, but it's really cool to see a game shoot that far towards what it's going for and look as good as it does while doing it, you know?
Oh, yeah, brother.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Let's shake things up before we hop into the news. We got a question that I think is pretty fun. And now it feels like a time to... We've talked games quite a bit here. Let's do something ridiculous. The Boorish Boar, one of our newest patrons, asked, if you and Chris were to swap bodies a la Freaky Friday, how would your lives change for the better and how would they change for the worse? Spare no details. Chris, I'm going to lob it over to you. If we were to Freaky Friday, how would you feel outside of the immediate shock?
I mean, I guess it depends when I take a shower.
I think you will be moderately impressed.
Hell yeah.
So I'm actually trying to think through the things that are going to be different for you, Chris, because you're going to be married. Like, you're going to be in the body of a man who's married.
Yeah, I would have a child I'd have to learn to raise in 30 seconds.
I want to add a question on here. What do you think the lesson that we would be supposed to be learning in order to swap back would be? We'll get there in a bit. But that's a curious one.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm going to tell you, you know what the first thought would be once I finally realized I was in your body?
What?
I would be like,
I gotta go to the gym.
Holy, no joke. We do have quite different body shapes. I think the first thing that both of us would notice is how different normal movement would be in comparison to what we think of as normal movement.
Yeah. It's an interesting question because I feel like for me it would just be like, oh, like I lost a bunch of weight, like this is cool, I guess. I don't know because there's too many moral conundrums, right? There's too many ways you can go with it. Like, does my family know that we switched places, or do you just have to pretend to be part of my family? That's significantly more morally dubious for me than you. Like, you have to go to dinner with my family. I have to like live with a woman.
I don't know, dude, because I'm gonna be real. If we're talking about moral quandaries that come into play, first things first is that if you don't tell my wife that you're in my body, you are kissing my wife because she's gonna.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah,
I'm trying not to say it because I'm trying not to be disrespectful of your wife.
Oh, you're like, cool, dude. We're talking we're talking what if situations. So point being, the first moral. Okay, I know it's different. Look, you're not married and you don't have a kid, and so I feel like it's easier for me to step into your body without immediately being worried of doing something morally, I'm gonna go ahead and say morally wrong. I don't know that there's a way that you could tell me that it would be morally right for you to sleep with my wife. Even if you're in my body, there's this.
That's exactly it. Like, but I have to tell her, which means, okay, so I have to have this conversation, and then she doesn't believe me. And then
True.
I have to spend half the movie trying to prove it. And then what really ends up happening is because I've dedicated so much time to trying to prove that I am not her husband, I am served with divorce papers in your body because now she's like, oh, well, you're just trying to get out of just having that conversation. You just don't want to say that you want, you know what I mean? Like it would just end up becoming such a problem.
Yeah, it's not even like at first you'd be like, haha, you're joking. Then it'd be like, so what, do you just not want to be married anymore? And this is your way out, that you could just feign that you're someone else?
Oh, what happened? The podcast mics got struck by lightning and you guys switched places? Like,
what do you do? Do you immediately, first of all, do you assume that if you woke up in my body that I must be in yours? That's the immediate question. As soon as you wake up and realize that you're there, would you be like, Brett has to be in my body?
Yeah, 100%.
So would you be like, Hannah, I'm going to call up Brett in Chris's body. And I'm gonna have him talk to you. See, I feel like maybe we could quash this, man. Because, like, let's be real. If this happened and you had to do it, if I were you, what a saying for what we're talking about. But if I were in that position where I was someone who wasn't married and then went into the married person's body, I'd be like, okay, first of all, let me holler at the person I'm saying has my body, but your husband's consciousness, let you talk to him and let you guys talk for long enough for him to be able to disclose some information that there is no way possible he could have predeterminedly given to me to let you believe that it's him, right?
Here's the problem that you have. As a bros before hoes kind of guy, I would go with that.
Yeah.
Like if you messaged me or you called me and you were like, I'm getting out of this shit. This is what we're doing. We're going to pretend to be Freaky Friday. And I'd be like, okay.
Chris, dude, you're a real ride or die, my guy. You know, in a way, I appreciate it, but also this is my marriage. This is a sacred vow. I may not believe in a God at this point in my life, but I still, like, you know, I meant something when I said
just in case, like.
Yeah. No, but you don't understand, dude. She's like really a bitch. She's just like really mean, bro. Like, she makes me wash my own clothes. To have and to hold, except for when it's my laundry. Point
should hold some laundry detergent.
All right, look, Chris, we've identified the most obvious things about my life that would immediately be weird for you. What do you think would be the most immediately obvious aspects of your life that I would be like, what the fuck, too? And I feel like career is obvious because, like, if this happened when we were supposed to go to work the next day, everything fucking falls apart. But let's exclude that. Let's say it's a weekend for me and you're off that Saturday. We wake up and it's Freaky Friday, so it has to be Friday. It's Good Friday. It's Good Friday. You're off, I'm off.
Sure, let's go with that.
Work is not a consideration. What is the other thing that would be immediately like, what the fuck?
Yeah, the other thing, geez, I don't know, probably the constant soreness from my job, which I guess is career, so I don't know if that counts.
I never actually got my point out, Chris. Earlier, the first thought that I would have once I fully became aware that I was in your body would be, I swear to fucking God, I hope that Chris doesn't have a gout flare up right now. Because I have never had gout, and the way that you talk about it, I'm terrified.
I think I'd rather give birth. I say that with no context.
Have you had a kidney stone?
No.
I'm very curious as to where it falls on the kidney stone line of pain because, like, there's times when I had the kidney stone and it was specifically how mine was. So it was stuck in my ureter and backing up into my basically my urine was backing up into my kidney. My kidney felt like it was going to explode, and I genuinely thought I was dying.
Jesus.
So in that aspect, I haven't given birth, but I don't feel like my wife felt like she was dying. but I don't know that for sure. You know?
Don't say that to her.
Oh, no. I mean, we've had the conversation of like, she's never had a kidney stone. So there's no way for us to compare. In a way, I would never wish this on her, but if she ever has a kidney stone, I'm gonna be like, please give me your insight. Like, what do you think?
Which is worse? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess, it's maybe an interesting abstract answer, but I feel like you would be most shocked by the complete lack of responsibility.
Oh,
and I don't mean that
actually,
in like a negative way, like towards my life, but like I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. You would wake up with nothing to do.
Dude, you would wake up. Here's the thing, though. You would wake up in the body of someone who has all that responsibility, but you don't have the mindset that you have that responsibility. So what I was going to say is you would be waking up with, like, in the context that you weren't used to having the amount of responsibility that I have. And again, I'm not saying in negative or a positive way towards my life. We just have different responsibilities, right? Like I have a wife, I have a kid, I bring in and pretty much handle. My wife does bring in money, but the majority of the bills, and if like I pay the bills, she doesn't. Like whenever I flew recently, I had to write down the login information for all the bills in case something happened during the flight, so that life wasn't just like, I was like, on top of you being sad, if you don't know how to fucking pay for the electric and water and internet, it's going to get worse. But so yeah, like all that, I own the house. So I have to keep up with that. I have renters who rely on me to do certain things. There's a lot of responsibility that if you had the mindset to be aware of it, you'd be like, oh my fucking God. But I don't know that you would, Chris, because like you would just wake up as Chris with no responsibilities in the body of someone who usually does have those responsibilities. I don't like, how quickly do you think you'd actually be like, holy shit, there's a lot I got to handle?
I think it would depend on the responsibility. Like I think like once I realized what happened, like I would just take care of your kid, right? And like make breakfast and all that kind of stuff. And like do that. But like the fucking renters from wherever come over, I'm like, get the fuck off my porch. Like I'm not going over there to fix your water. Fuck you. It's in the basement. Like that's the kind of like it would be like those two different vectors where it's like I feel like I would just instinctually like try and make sure everything was good with a child, but like everything else I'd be like, Fred can figure this shit out when he gets back, dog.
When we figure out
that's the moral of the movie. You need to be reminded what life is with less responsibility so that you can let yourself live a little bit more. This is
like This Wonderful Life moment.
I need to grow up a bit. Right. And that's the thing. Like I need to grow up a little bit and have some responsibility and see it and embrace it and realize.
That just sounds like Freaky Friday.
It is. There's no other fucking moral thing. What are we going to learn from each other? That our political views are kind of the same? Like, I don't understand what we're learning here.
I have a real question. I feel like that is probably the lesson that we have to learn to swap back over, right? Like, it's a little different because we're not mother and daughter, and we're not like parent and child. But I still think what you're saying is like, it would be you gaining I don't say appreciation, but it'd be like you gaining that experience of what that's like. Because like, I know if we're being candid, I know that those are things that like you do want. And you're just, you're not there yet for various reasons. So it'd be like interesting for you to experience that and have that to maybe pull you through figuring out how you want to approach going that way. And it'd be a way for me to remember what it's like to have that responsibility. And that's a good thing. But I have a really weird question that it's maybe not that weird.
Hold on a second. Sorry. We have to pause. Sorry.
You're cool.
That's something you'd have to get used to.
I have to get used to people calling in the middle of the show. Yeah, that's fair. I'm not a manager, so I wouldn't have to worry. Whenever I leave work is gone. It's left. I don't have to think about it.
Lucky you.
But Chris, my question.
Yeah, your question.
If we're personalities, I mean, there's all sorts of questions about how the fuck do you even swap bodies with someone, but we're going to call this personalities in different bodies, right? Like we're going to call this a collection of memories and personality in a different body. I mean, I'm not physically putting my brain inside of yours. So that would lead me to believe that my experience of body would be different than you. I think my most exciting thing, since apparently I'd have nothing to fucking do. You think I'd be bored? You know what I think would happen? I'd be like, let me look at something I'm very familiar with and see how I view the colors differently. How does he see red? How does he see this particular red? What does Dr. Pepper taste like to him versus to me?
See, I didn't even think about that.
I fucking hate broccoli. Do you like broccoli?
I like steamed broccoli, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. I would try broccoli and be like, bro, is it fucking fire through Chris's like palate? Like Does Chris have the same problem with the texture of broccoli that I do? If not, dude, I'd probably start trying to chat out on some shit I've had problems with. Like, right? Like, I don't like slimy shit. I'd be like, okay, what about zucchini? Does Chris have a problem with the sliminess of zucchini when it's not cooked correctly? I don't think
fuck
cooked
with
correctly.
zucchini at all, so.
Fair enough. I fuck with zucchini if it's cooked specific. Do you like asparagus?
Yeah.
Asparagus is pretty fire. I'm gonna be real. I've had bad cooked asparagus.
You know what the funniest part of this? Like, let's pretend this is a movie. There would be like an arc where it's like for 3 days you have just a splitting headache, and you're trying to figure out: are you sick? Are you dying? And then it just clicks. You're like, this man hasn't had a monster in 3 days.
He's experiencing withdrawal.
Unironically, like, I don't necessarily go out on my days off, but I do go get Monster because I get headaches if I don't have the caffeine.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Huh. I was going to say something and now I can't think of what it was. Holy crap.
I would want enough food. I've always wondered, like exactly what you said, like, what is red for you?
Yeah, like that seems like such a stupid thing to ask, but I also know that like sometimes I'll look at a color and I'll be like, that's this color. My wife's like, no, that's this color. And I know that we're both close. Like, we're both talking about similar colors. We just disagree. Like, a great example is like colors that are both blue and green. And what we argue on is, to what degree are they more blue or more green? Because like sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's teal. And she'll be like, that's turquoise. And I'm like, no.
You must have had a field day with that white and gold dress thing that was going around.
Oh, dude. Yeah, such a good time. Yeah, shit like that feels like it'd be a really easy way to kind of be like, how do I approach this? I have a new question that's come to mind here. Some of these movies never show, though ironically what he referenced here is Lil Dicky's Freaky Friday featuring Chris Brown, where the song is He Woke Up in Chris Brown's Body. The thing that they often don't experience in these types of movies, even the new one, when I have to piss in your body, and therefore my instinct would tell me that you unzip and you touch your penis to make sure that you like aim it correctly. Is it gay that I'm touching your dick? Or am I touching my body's dick so it's cool? You get what I'm saying?
Well, the thing is, much like Marathon, it is your turn with my dick. It is not my dick. This is very much an extraction shooter scenario, right? It's your turn with the Bobcat. And when you lose it, it's my turn.
Are we making our way back to the cuck chair? Or are you going to be like wanting to see me pee and hold your dick? I'm like, yeah, you hold my dick.
But like,
okay, first,
is that sexual assault?
Okay.
Like, did you assault me right there?
Okay, Chris, if you get horny in my body, what do you do?
For sure, jerk off. I'm not even gonna like sugarcoat it. For sure.
So, is it gay that you made another dick come?
Probably, but
but you gotta have. Do you think you'd figure it out after post nut clarity? Would you be like, oh, that was gay as fuck? But I had to do it.
Did it feel different? Because that's the thing. It's a new experience and a new body.
It's a new dick, bro. What does my hand on my dick feel like to someone who's never experienced my hand on my dick? This is getting out of hand, Chris.
Like, what does taking a shit feel like in your body?
Oh my God, yes.
And like, that's the thing. You have to deal with different diets. Like, you know, like you'd have a different diet than me.
Mm-hmm.
You have different just needs in general, right? Like, you need a good night's sleep. In my body, you could get 4 hours and you'll be fine.
Chris, do you like coconut? Like the smell or the taste?
No.
I fucking loathe coconut, so I'm glad that we're there. I wonder how much that experience. But I was going to say, like, coconut's one of those things where I don't like the taste or the smell. Like, I fucking hate when my wife gets soap for like the bathroom that has coconut scents in it. I'm like, oh, you know, I don't like that. Why would you?
Yeah.
But I also don't like the taste of coconut. They're very different like things, right? Like artificial coconut flavor and real coconut flavor are not the same thing as the way coconut smells or artificial coconut smells. I don't know, man. I feel like if we really wanted to sit here and divide this out.
Do we transfer skills?
Oh, shit. Yeah. Will you be able to juggle if you're in my body?
Will you be able to cook? Not that you can, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Like, well,
could you run a restaurant?
Here's the thing. I feel like that is just knowledge that has to, I mean, like some of it's like muscle memory. So I do wonder if like things that I know how to do that you know how to do, but I don't do them as often. I wonder if I'd be better at them.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, could you work a $3,000 hour behind the line? Like, I don't know.
I don't know
Could
either.
you
I
do
mean,
that?
but like a good, I don't know. Have you ever played a guitar? I'm just
No.
trying to think of an example, right? Well, here we have a better example right now. Marathon. You've played a lot more marathon than I have, but I have played marathon, and I've played first-person shooters. Since you've been recently playing one a lot more, if we were to this Friday, Freaky Friday swap, and I booted up marathon, I am familiar with what marathon wants you to do, and I do have most of the knowledge, I think, of what the game would want. There's definitely more, but you have more of the twitch impulses and muscle memory tied to that. Would I pick up those benefits? But only with my knowledge base of marathon.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's what
we're learning here question. Is that as much as this is an interesting conversation, it makes for arguably a worse story than what Freaky Friday is. And what we're learning is that when you start to try and dig into the unnecessary parts of fiction, you can ruin what makes the fiction fun to begin with.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem with that story is like, the first thing both of us are doing when we wake up is taking our pants off, without a shadow of a doubt. That's the first thing we're both doing. I don't believe you if you say that's not true. We'll be like,
I don't know. I mean, I'll give you this. At some point, I'm going to be like, what the fuck am I dealing with? Because like, again, the thought would go, when I have to piss, I'm going to have to come face to face with it anyway. I'm not just going to piss Chris's body.
Well, it's not that
because unfortunately, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's like it's examples like that where it's like, you might as well. But I don't know. I also think it's just like curiosity. Like, like people think it's because dudes are horn dogs. But you know what? When people are like, well, what'd you do if you woke up in a woman's body? Like, I would immediately fill myself up because I don't know what it's like to have big breasts and not a penis. So both of those things are interesting to me. And it's not, I already enjoy experiencing things I've not experienced and learning new things. And what is touching up, like, and again, we get into moral problems here. Let's just say I woke up and my body was swapped to a female's body. It's not someone else's body. I'm not violating someone else by doing these things.
So if I woke up in Sydney Sweeney's body, no.
So you'd be violating Sydney Sweeney's, but only her body, but you're in it at that time. So is this like a ownership's is 3/5 of the law kind of thing? Like, legally speaking, could you sue me for actions I committed while in your body once you are back to your body?
No, because you couldn't prove it. That's the thing. Like, what's the dark version of this where like I'm in your body, so I go, oh shit, and I just go rob a bunch of banks and just put the money in a bank account. Obviously it's harder than that, but
fair. All right,
I think
so
the
that was
more
a fun
interesting
little
version
detour.
of this is like a PlayStation podcaster and an Xbox podcaster switch. And in order to maintain public image, they have to do each other's shows. And then at the end of the movie, they both realize that everyone can live together in a happy ecosystem.
You know what I want? I want to make that movie, but I want to focus on all the parts that are not riveting. I want to focus on the fact that I'm in the Xbox podcaster's body and he's in mine, but he doesn't know how to log into my Zencaster. So he can't even fucking do the show. He's over here like, well, what program does he use? And maybe he figures out that it's Zencaster, but but he's working his way through. And then he goes, I don't fucking know this guy's login.
Thank God for the cloud. See?
Thank God for saved passwords.
Yeah.
But then what happens when it's two-factor authentication? I guess he has my phone.
That's true.
Still,
these
are the parts I'd focus on.
We're good.
Are you telling me that we'd be doing Face Off? I just realized that Face Off in many ways is Freaky Friday. It's not, but it's not, but it is. You heard it here first, people. You heard it here first.
Movie coming soon.
All right, Chris. Let's scooch into the news. But as a quick little reminder, if you are enjoying the show and you are listening on a podcast service, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube or whatever it be, you can like the video. Feel free to comment down in the comment section, asking any questions that you want to, or commenting on any of the crazy shit we've talked about here. And if you want to support the show with more than just your time, you can head over to patreon.com/Nartech and give as little as $1 per month to support the show. directly, which we are very thankful for. So, scooching into the first piece of news we have here, and I'm going to say arguably the biggest piece of news that has come out for a PlayStation podcast. Shuhei Yoshida, who many of you may know was previously the head of PlayStation Studios, or at the time Sony Worldwide Studios, says he was fired from his role as PlayStation Studio president because he did not listen to Jim Ryan, which on its face, I guess that's fair. Your boss told you to do something, you didn't do it, and you got fired. But let's dig a little bit more in. So the popular executive quit Sony last year, and this I'm reading this from a Video Games Chronicle article, by the way. After 31 years with the company, where he helped to launch the original PlayStation and served as its president of SIE Worldwide Studios between 2008 2019, so an 11-year tenure there. Yoshida recently stated during the Alt Games Festival in Australia, he had a talk where he talked about what makes indie games successful whenever he reportedly made the following comments. Excuse me. He listed some of his achievements as Worldwide Studios president, then claimed he was fired for not agreeing to do certain things, which he did not specify for Ryan. That's an interesting read. Yeah. What did Ryan want you to do, buddy?
Yeah.
Did he want you to Freaky Friday with him?
Show us on the PlayStation where Jim Ryan touched you.
where he touched you. He touched me on the open button. Quote, I helped Santa Monica to make God of War, Naughty Dog to make Uncharted, and The Last of Us and Sucker Punch to make the beautiful Ghost of Tsushima, Yoshida reportedly said. Quote, Ghost of Tsushima was one of the last games I worked on as president of Worldwide Studios. But in 2019, after 11 years leading the first party development, I was fired from the role. Jim Ryan wanted to remove me from first party because I didn't listen to him. He asked me to do some ridiculous things, and I said no. So the report does state that whenever he said this, he said it in a jovial, kind of joking manner, leading to laughter from the audience. But this is not the first time that Yoshida has discussed his removal from the SIE Worldwide Studios president role. Last year, a month after he left Sony, Yoshida stated that he didn't choose to step down in 2019 and was instead forced to take the new indies role because the alternative would have been leaving PlayStation altogether. These are all interesting things, but I think this has led to a conversation online, and this is kind of coming back to what Chris was talking about with Marathon to a degree, where you've got to be careful about just looking at the discussion across social media, because I've heard a lot of crazy takes in every direction here. Some of it may even be ones I agree with, but the way that they're choosing to illustrate them just feel like crazy overboard, and like people lose their ability to try and be reasonable with their approach whenever they're online, and there's no real backlash to what they're saying. Chris, what have you seen people say from this, and what is your take on what this is and what this means for your opinion of PlayStation?
I mean, I think it just goes to show that Jim Ryan made bad bets, and we're all paying for it. And so are Evolution and Bluepoint and Japan Studios and Insomniac and Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch and Sony Santa Monica are all paying for bad decisions. I don't inherently think that the live service idea was bad. I just think that it kind of reminds me of like when I come up with like a story idea, right? Where I go, and it has happened recently, something I'm kind of working on in the background, where I go, a lesbian Bonnie and Clyde would be interesting. And then I'm like, okay, let's see how that plays out. And then I hear a song and I'm like, okay, I have a vision of the ending of one of the girls hanging out of the window covered in blood with that song playing, right? And that's how they did live service. They went, Fortnite's cool. What happens if we did a Fortnite? And then they were like, oh, okay, well, you Helldivers guys, you're doing that, right? Okay, cool. And it was like, oh, well, I've got this cool idea that, could a God of War live service work? Well, Bluepoint was just working on God of War Ragnarok. Hey guys, what are you guys working on? Oh, we've got, Legend of Dragoon remake, and, we're thinking about doing some more stuff with Shadow of the Colossus, or how about even like we do this Ghost of Tsushima spin-off, or I guess we could do like a God of War live service game. I don't fucking know. And they did that one, do that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And then it's like, okay, so they do the live service game. And then oh, Jade Raymond, you made Assassin's Creed and you worked at Ubisoft and you didn't make a game for Google and you didn't make another game for Ubisoft and you've never made anything in 20 years. Want to make a live service game? That's just what they did. And then they went, oh, you know who makes really good live services games? That what? I mean, it's not. I know it's 10 years on and the game's about to die, but hey, Bungie, how does $3.6 billion sound? Oh, okay, yeah, let's do it. Woo! Like that's what they did. They just went live service sounds cool, and instead of like coming up with a coherent vision for it, they just bought a bunch of shit.
So
they thought Concord was their new Star Wars.
Am I hearing you say right now that you think, and I am inclined to believe the same, I'm just wanting to double check, is the implication you're making here that the ridiculous things that Yoshida was asked to do by Ryan was basically pivot heavy into games as a service?
Yeah, for sure. And
I think that's very likely what it is too. And I think it shows a lot. We don't know, of course, but I think it shows a lot that Yoshida had the understanding of what the studios were capable of and what their strengths were to go, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think we should even motivate them to do it, because I do agree, and I think it's true that as much as I hate that Blue Point got closed because of what's happening or is getting closed, I don't even know if that's ever come back around. But point being, whatever's happening at Blue Point, whatever's happening at these other places, is what's happening a result of them making a decision to pitch a live service game. They got too lost in that because they were motivated to do so because it was easier to get an approval from that. I understand that they got enough rope to hang themselves is essentially what you can say. But I think the problem is that leadership needs to be the one to go, we understand that we are motivating people right now to do live service, and we do want to hear what you've got going on, but we want to say, don't do it strictly because of the motivation, because it's easier to pitch. Let us see what it is. We can work together, see if it's a good idea, a good fit. Like, we want to encourage people to go outside of their comfort zone, but we don't want to make it feel as though it's the only way that you're going to get the next game approved. Again, we can't say for sure that's what happened. I do think that this is leadership failure, but I think the bigger problem is having leadership, and I'm assuming it just came down to this person, Yoshida, is not wanting to do it. This person is more willing to push in and do these things. I think the problem is trying to get people who are not geared towards these things to do these things. It's just a bad call. I don't think it was the right choice, and I think we've seen that it hasn't been the right choice. I think any one of these decisions doesn't seem crazy on its own. If you were like, hey, the one live service bet they made was Concord, it still was a drastic failure, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's one choice that didn't go well. But I think once you couple that with partnering with Deviation and that going to hell, and then taking Jason Blundell and letting him make a new studio and that going to hell, and then also buying the studio that's making Concord before you know if Concord's going to be anything of value, and then bringing on this person, Jade Raymond, who hasn't made a game in a while, but maybe there's something going on, bringing them on, and then also buying Bungie. All of these things together feel like, bro, what the fuck? You dove in like you're a professional diver when you barely learned how to swim. Mm-hmm. And that is the crazy part. And I'll agree with you that's just, it feels like PlayStation, for as much as we can say, like you're right, Jim made a lot of weird bets. At the same time, Jim did do a lot of smart things in his time, seemingly. We will, again, never know for sure who benefited from whose decisions. There's a small chance.
Schreier's next book.
Yeah, there's a small chance that everything that we're attributing to Jim Ryan's tenure, it was like a 5-year period, right? That a lot of the good things were actually because of initiatives that were started under the previous presidents, right? Like maybe it was started under Sean Layden. We don't know for sure, but I think it's likely that he did do a lot of good things. It's just he also bet too strongly in some areas that PlayStation's still suffering from right now.
I think the biggest problem, maybe this is dumb. Maybe this is a dumb example, but it's how I kind of feel about it, right? Is where it reminds me of us like like presidents, literal presidents.
100%.
Where it's like right now, please, for the love of God, don't write in. We're just having a conversation. Right now, like a lot of what's going on economically is on Trump, but there's just as much that's from the Biden administration that happened because of the Trump administration, that happened because of Obama. Like these people are picking up after each other, right? So I think the most damning part of Jim Ryan's era is the fact that we will never have anything to judge him on except for the absence of games.
Yeah,
all his games are dead.
Critique.
Marathon doesn't count because they bought it.
Yeah.
Concord they bought it, right? Helldivers 2 was the only thing that they've done, and they managed to fuck up that relationship to the point where I would not be shocked if we see a Arrowhead fucking Halo game. Like I think we're at a very interesting point where, and it's depressing because it kind of, to some people who are looking for a first party experience, it ruined the PS5 generation because there's nothing is going to come for it. Even like Shuhei has said, like Saros was his, like God of War Ragnarok was him, like all of the games that we saw at the beginning were all Shuhei and those guys. The Jim Ryan era, sure,
yeah, I got you.
The Jim Ryan era is a big nothing burger, and then the hope is that the next guy, I think Hiroki Totoki or something I don't know the guy's name, I'm not going to pretend, but like the Herman Hulst / him era is going to be cleaning up Jim's messes, and that's what we're seeing. And I don't actually agree with you. I think Deviation and even Firewalk and even Dark Outlaw were the right bets. It was find someone who's not involved in us and incubate with them.
No, what I was trying to get across there, I get what and why it came off that way. But what I was trying to get across there is making as many bets as they did. And I even kind of understand it. They're trying to catch up. They've done this before. And almost every time that PlayStation's tried to catch up, they have failed. The only time PlayStation ever seems to actually do well, again, within their own games, not as a business or how they make money. But when it comes to the way that their studios are operating, they do the best when they let their studios lean into their own strengths and carve their own way forward rather than trying to retaliate to what the industry's doing. And I think part of why that can be said is even whenever you lightly motivate, like, hey, games are having online modes. So even though Uncharted is the strength of what Naughty Dog has going on right now, experiment with a multiplayer mode, and then you get Uncharted 2's multiplayer mode, which was it Call of Duty 4? No, but is it a beloved multiplayer game? Yes. And I think little examples like that, Uncharted 3, you have like a Resistance series, like, you have those examples of where things went well for them. But I think what I was trying to get at there is just the quantity of it seems kind of crazy for the amount of knowledge they had in it. I think that if we're going to actually pull them out and look at them one by one, I ultimately agree with you that people who already have a history, like Deviation being made up of people who primarily were from Call of Duty and previous Call of Duty studios, therefore understanding how games that need to have a player base stick with them for long periods of time, I think that that's a sensible bet. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's a reason, even though it didn't work, I think it was a reasonable choice to put money behind that. I think it was a bit more questionable to put money behind Jason Blundell after you determined that Deviation was not working. I think Deviation, even though it didn't work, was a good bet that just didn't pan out. I think Jason Blundell was a questionable bet that didn't pan out. Whether or not it was even games as a service, something I saw from him actually implied that the game wasn't even games as a service, which is interesting. But regardless, the point being is Jason Blundell was behind Deviation. It didn't work out. They gave him a second chance in a weird way. It still didn't work out. Okay. I think that Jade Raymond is it's a wild card bet. It really is there's no reason to believe that Jade Raymond would be heading a company that would be ideal choice for games as a service, but they just did it anyway. And it is what it is, but also buying them is the part that got questionable. And I know why it happened, because everybody was buying everybody. They didn't want to lose the opportunity. I think what we're seeing with 4Loop right now and the Annapurna, or not Annapurna, but maybe
Bad Robot.
Bad Robot. There you go. Thank you. I think that's a much more PlayStation bet. Partner with somebody who does good stuff, work with them, make it a really specific partnership where you're treating it like first party, but it's not. I think that's how it always should have been, but it just kept being a series of not that. And that has made this era feel really weird. And I don't know how much this has really impacted other things. It's odd to say that PlayStation messed up their actual studios, but at the same time, it's weird that it feels like output has been slow when it shouldn't be. but I don't know how to completely say that. But in terms of something, I want to wrap up on this for my part. You can finish up with whatever you want to. One thing I think is interesting is you said that you feel like this is now whoever the president of PlayStation or Sony, whichever one is, and then the head of PlayStation Studios being Herman Hulst now are here to clean up the messes of Jim Ryan. And I think I agree with the aspect of that's what their job now is to do. But as I thought I was going to like Herman Hulst in this role, and I'm not saying I dislike him in this role, but I think one thing that's becoming not obvious, but I'm seeing evidence as to point towards it. I think part of the reason PlayStation ended up here is that maybe they were always going to, because Jim Ryan was just always going to find his yes man and put him in the role. So it is what it is. But I think what made Yoshida's time period work is that he was a strong decision maker who knew what his people could and couldn't do well and knew what to push for and what to push back against. And I think that that's why Sony enjoyed such a long period of mostly great first party studios. I think the Herman Hulst era has been so weird because I think he capitulated way too easily and he didn't push back against. And so him still being in the role now leaves me to question, he's in a position where as long as people aren't pushing on him to be a yes man, he might have the ability to do something great. But it shows me that under pressure, he gives in to whatever the leaders want. And I think any good work environment, and I'll call this work culture. And this is something I think all companies have to deal with as they last long enough that work culture can shift over time. I think Sony's PS3 and PS4 era work culture, and even some of PS2, I think that work culture has shifted. And that's not great because people who have been there a long time want that culture. And then once it starts shifting, you deal with the lack of that. And what happens is you get new people who adapt well to the new culture, but the people who've been there a long time and have been responsible for your success for a long time don't do a good job of changing. And that doesn't mean that your work culture should never change, but it should be gradual. And it feels like what PlayStation's been doing this generation has been ramrodding and forcing change quickly. And I think that everything that's been going on this generation that has been less than ideal is a result of them trying to force change too quickly. And I don't know that Hulst in this position now is the right fit. He has not done enough to show me that he's the right fit with this information to actually make the changes that I think Sony would need to make to get back to the feeling that I had from them in what I consider to be their heyday, PS3, PS4.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I think the only point I really would make, and I don't even know if pushback is the right term here, is I think making as many bets as he did was a good thing. Strictly because the thing with the live service push, right, is the biggest problem is that he never hit really.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
the story changes if one thing. I shouldn't say that. I mean, Helldivers 2 hit. I think it's really hard to say that it didn't.
But I would argue that Helldivers 2 is not part of the live service push. It happens to happen when it happened, but that game was coming before this all happens.
Agreed, yeah. But it is still a hit in the live service category. Even if it's a technicality, it's still a hit.
My point is that,
but your point is that none of the things that exactly. I got you.
And that's why this looks so bad. Because if PlayStation, let's say Concord was a quarter of Fortnite, we're having an entirely different conversation. Because then the initiative is successful, and when you see Dark Outlaw game and Deviation games going away, you go, okay, well, that one didn't work. And then when you see Marathon, Marathon becomes a different conversation, because then you go, oh, well, they've got their Fortnite over here, but they've also got this really cool niche hardcore, to a degree game, depending on how you want to play it, right?
And it lifts the expectation of Marathon to be this big carrier of the live service initiative.
Right now,
I think that that's fair. I do think that a big part of Marathon's negativity is people thought, because everything else has failed, that Marathon's supposed to be our real, look, this is their live service. No, I agree with you. I have questioned, but I think that there's a strong chance that no one at Bungie or PlayStation actually expected Marathon to be Bungie's next 10 years like Destiny was. I think this was always meant to be something extra.
Every dollar I have in my bank account, I would bet that they built this game not expecting it to be a 50 million seller.
Yeah.
They made this game thinking this is something cool we want to do on the side while we're working on Destiny. And
it can help with Destiny fatigue.
Yeah. And the problem is what just so happened was Destiny died, PlayStation bought them, and now they have this spotlight on Marathon because now everyone's like, well, this is what they decided to do instead of Destiny. Well, like, if you really pay attention, Marathon is a pretty small team of people inside of Bungie, right? Nobody's talking shit about the Team LFG game.
And it also doesn't help. This is one more piece of just how public perception happened. The fact that Arc Raiders is technically the same genre as Marathon and popped off, people now go, ooh, this is the next extraction shooter, which from our understanding from Arc is supposed to be this massive thing, and you're not hitting what we have now learned an extraction shooter to be numbers-wise. But the crazy thing is, Arc Raiders is the only extraction shooters that has popped off to this degree. There is no
Marathon's
history
in line with all the other ones.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like from an actual standpoint of how the game's performing, this is in line with the majority of the genre. It's great for Embark that Arc Raiders has basically made the first like massive hit in this genre. But to think that every game is going to be that is so stupid. But again, when you couple that with the fact that you think Marathon's supposed to be the first time we see, you know, some of the technically first party live service hit happen, it's like a bad storm. The more we've talked today, the more I feel bad for Marathon in terms of the expectations that the culture around gaming has given to it that I don't know that anyone internally gave to it.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Having spent so much time with the game, if they were building it expecting it to be Fortnite, they should all be fired.
Oh, they failed.
Not because the quality is bad. Not even the failure. The pathetic naivete to think that a game like this, again, I'll make arguments till the cows come home that Marathon is a much more casual game than people give it credit for. But if you want to play it even on my level, and that's not a high level, it's a very intense, like, you have to know what's going on. You have to be paying attention. You have to be willing to read more than a sentence. So there's no way that they were like, yo, this is our next Destiny 2. You know what the next Destiny 2 is? Destiny 3. Like, let's just be real. It's going to happen. Sony didn't buy them for Marathon. And I think they said that, right? We're supposed to get Destiny TV shows and movies and all this kind of stuff. And let's not forget, we did get Team LFG, which is another, the Gummy Bears project is another live service attempt from them.
Yeah.
Will it get the time of day that it probably deserves? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this is crazy, but it's been interesting seeing the remarks online of people. And look, I mean, I don't even completely disagree. I think clearly this was, depending on who you are and what you want from PlayStation, this was a misfire from Jim Ryan and PlayStation leadership at the time. It doesn't mean that it didn't need to happen and that PlayStation first party studios need to adapt to some degree. I would argue that right now what Sony needs to get under control is the thing that the industry as a whole needs to get under control, which is wasted development time. And I know that sounds like a really insane thing to throw out there, but I'm going to say that I think most games are taking 6, 7, 8 years because of the fact that a large chunk of the development time is being wasted. And then the longer that you wait to make the game, the more the expectation that you're going to make massive changes happens. And then that makes you take longer because now you have to try and make a bigger change because the expectation, and then it's just like a loop. It's a self-defeating cycle of shit. The longer we take, the more that people are going to have crazy expectations.
Yeah.
Look, I haven't actually played Tears of the Kingdom. I want to throw this out there. Tears of the Kingdom took, 5 years to make, if I remember correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If it took 5 years to make a game that most of the assets came from Breath of the Wild, why?
Right.
In the game, again, I am not even talking shit about the game. I am saying that the game took 5 years to make, and I don't even know that Nintendo wasted that much time. But I think some of it was, well, we've built this game and we've come up with this new gameplay system that makes Tears different than Breath. But now we've also got this thing of, well, we're in the world of Breath of the Wild, so now we got to do something more because it took us 3 years to figure out how to change this. And so now we have to go, well, we got to add 2 more years because we got to add this, this, and this, and this. And none of them even made it a hugely different experience from Breath of the Wild. It doesn't mean it made it bad. It may have even made it better, but it made it take maybe 2 years longer than it should have. And it's all hypothetical speak, but
some potential bit of credit is that those games are very physics and mechanics heavy, and Tears of the Kingdom does add a lot of them
and cranks that. That's what I'm saying. I can see that taking a long time.
Yeah,
I could see that taking 3 years. I mean, it took first of all, the reason it took Breath of the Wild so long to come out from whenever it was first announced is because Skyward Sword did not impress. Like it wasn't a bad game, but it didn't impress people, and Nintendo wanted to wow people, so they had to figure out how to reinvent the formula and do something different. I understand it, and I think that Breath of the Wild, even if it's not a game that I love, I think it's a much better example of why a game should take 5 to 7 years to make than a lot of the games that we're seeing right now that take 5 to 7 years to make. And again, that doesn't mean any of these games are bad. That just doesn't make sense as to why they take as long as they do to make.
The games are not good enough to justify the time they take.
I think God of War Ragnarok would have been so much better to me if it came out in 2 years as opposed to 4.5. And that is just, again, that's not even me saying anything terrible about the game. It's just that naturally expectations increase with time. And so unless you're going to completely blow my balls off by making a massive change, like I don't care that God of War 2018 took what, 5 years to come out, maybe 7 years to come out after God of War, what was it, Ascension? I don't care because it reinvented the formula in a lot of ways, and so the time felt worth the wait. But doing more of the same with Ragnarok in 4.5 years, again, not saying that you couldn't have done anything around it, but it does make it harder to look at it. We've said this a lot, but what I want to get to is there are a lot of games that just spend wasted development time. And a good example of this is a game that came out recently, last year, Metroid Prime 4. That game got announced without anybody knowing what the fuck the game was. Yep. Then it spends a long time of them trying to figure it out. Then
didn't even have a developer, shit. Right?
No, it did. They did have a developer, but they hadn't really started working the game. Then they decided to stop the game from being produced by that developer and then give it to Retro. And then go, hey, we're just giving it to a new developer. And then you leave Retro kind of going, well, what the fuck do we do with this? We have a lot of stuff from this other game that they were trying to make. We have all these files and we have what's going on. And then they waste time trying to figure out how to do something with it before just ultimately going, the safest bet for us to get a product out in a reasonable amount of time, now that it's been 4 years since you announced the game, is for us to just start developing a game that in many ways is just Metroid Prime 1. It's more Metroid Prime, even though it's not really doing anything that and now you have to go, Metroid Prime 4, technically speaking, took 7 years from announcement to release, all because you just didn't know what the fuck you wanted to do. And I feel like that's true of more games than we're even aware of.
Do you think, let me ask you a question, right? And this is more of a human psychology question, but it's something I've been thinking about. And it actually goes back to Game of Thrones more than video games. But we can talk about it in video games sense because I think it does fit here, right? Do you think, given social media and the way that we now interact with the world, that there is some argument that, I know it's not complete, but there is some argument that a game, the best time for a game is the time before it comes out? And maybe games take...
Out of curiosity.
Like... Okay, we'll bring it back to the Game of Thrones example, right? Everyone in the audience, you know what happened with the last season of Game of Thrones, right?
Yep.
Horrendous stuff. But the most I ever talked about, heard about, discussed, watched videos, like had conversations with people was the year before it came out. And what happened when it came out was it went from being one of the best shows of all time to a dog shit pile of crap. Right. Let me put it this way. If there's any flaws in GTA 6, the worst day it will ever have is the second day.
I was just about to say GTA 6 is going to be a really interesting example of this. I get what you mean, though. It's like, because of how we've changed the way that we interact with media, in a way, the majority of the time we spend interacting with the media is actually before the media is ever in our hands. And that sounds counterintuitive, but it's in a way, it's kind of meta true, right? Like it is true. Well, you are interacting with Grand Theft Auto 6 right now if you're choosing to actively discuss and talk to people and theorize and guess
the entire industry is cowering in fear of that Latina ass. Like,
me too.
So, like, let me put it in a way that is more business rather than, you know, pretending executives are too online, right? What happened? What do you like? I don't know. I didn't follow the trends, but like, what happens to Rockstar's stock when GTA comes out and it's bad? It drops, right? It would drop. You'd think. I'm telling every person I know to buy Take-Two stock right now.
Yeah.
So, like, even in a business sense, does it make sense to build anticipation for Spider-Man 3 for 5 years rather than saving a little bit of money, making a slightly lesser product? I won't even say slightly, making a lesser product than you could make, but is out faster. But, Grums just went viral for talking about how the fucking boat animation is the same as it was in the last game. And now we've got a bunch of negative discussion about our game, so now our stock price dropped because we're no longer seen as a prestige. I know that sounds very terminally online, but things move that way.
I kind of
Pearl
get what
Abyss's
you mean,
stock dropped because of the reviews of Crimson Desert. But let's be real
community
sentiment,
like I get what you mean. I really truly do, and I think that there's of course a kernel of truth to what you're saying. But I think that, in my opinion, I think we're seeing the same problem I just expressed across all media. And I think where I'm trying to go with this is that whenever the product is good, even though it still experiences that quick thing, when it's good, it survives anyway. And what I want to mean by that is, like, okay, think about, let's move it to a different medium just so we can kind of get to what I'm talking about. People not knowing what they're doing, wasted time. And that is truly what it is. And then sometimes it's wasted time that goes unspent until you finally make a product. And then sometimes it's you wasted time and now you're trying to rush with the time that you have left to make a finished product. Think about all the Marvel movies where all you hear is, oh, we're filming and we don't know the script.
Yeah.
What happened with the most recent Stranger Things season? They did not have a finished script when they started filming. That has been a consistent problem. And now look at, in general, TV shows are still made the same way they've been made for a long time. Even shows that have very minimal visual effects work, right? Let's talk about something. There's definitely an example out there. I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of TV shows where, like, used to, you'd get a new Vince Gilligan Breaking Bad series every season, and it'd be, you know, multiple episodes, way longer. Now you get shorter seasons from every show, and they take 2 to 3 times as long to come out as they used to. And somehow that's happening that's what I mean. That's everything. Maybe short of music. I think music may be the one medium that hasn't really seen a massive change in the way that releases come out.
I can probably tell you why. It's because of streaming. The more music you put out, the more money you make.
You're gonna make,
For an Apple, right? Or let's put it with HBO, because one of the most ridiculous stories coming out of HBO is that they're not gonna have a new Harry Potter season every year. And it's fucking insane. So you're not going to do this in 7 years. But the reason is that these shows are going to come out. Like, I'm a weekly guy. I like waiting and anticipating the next episode of The Boys. Right? Sure. I enjoy that.
Okay.
But
just to speak on that real quick, I have recently been choosing, because my wife and we've been watching the Scrubs revival, which has been surprisingly good. I'm very happy with it. It's suffering from the same problem of being 9 episodes, and I don't think there's going to be another season for 2 years, even though it's probably getting renewed. Point being, I'm there, and I have somewhat enjoyed every week being like, oh, hey, it's Thursday. Or actually, it's always Friday, but hey, it's Friday. Let's catch the last episode of Scrubs that came out. So I'm with you. I get where you're coming from on those. But
I like getting my Nando V movies like, I like The Boys, and this week on Nebula, you know, like all the things that they're going to do, right? And I like having those interactions, so I do like the weekly. But I think that the reason there's less episodes and the reason that they're taking longer is because there's no need, right? They're not syndicated. They're not, I don't know if syndicated is the right word, but there's no commercials. They're not selling ad rev, right? I would get 23 episodes of Arrow every year, and some of them were dog shit.
Yeah.
but I still got them. And quite
Yeah.
frankly, I'd rather get a bunch of dog shit episodes than get 8 episodes of The Boys.
See, and look, and in a way, I can get where you're coming from. I think, again, going back to my point from earlier, I think quality is always the thing that gets weird here, because I want to tell you that I'm not going to act like TV shows have never had filler. They definitely have had filler. But what I'm also going to tell you is that you're right. There are some dog shit episodes of some shows because they just needed to fill the space to sell commercial ads. Then I think there are shows where almost every episode is incredible. Breaking Bad came out consistently every year, and it was fucking incredible.
Okay.
There's not a wasted episode in Breaking Bad. There's not a wasted episode in Better Call Saul. There's far fewer wasted episodes in the original Scrubs run than most shows have now, and Scrubs consistently has a very high quality bar. Which leads to my point in general about what you're talking about with the speed, and then you can rebut with what you would do. But the thing that gets interesting is, like, a great example that I can think of recently is Across the Spider-Verse, right? That took way longer than they originally said to actually hit theaters. And now the second part of that still has not hit theaters is now 2 years past when it was supposed to release, if I'm not mistaken. But it had a ton of talk building up from it because of how much everybody loved the first movie, right? And it had so much excitement behind it. But that movie hit, and it was incredible, and it just keeps going. It's not being made quickly, but it goes to show that regardless of how long it takes, if the quality hits, people are not just going to shit on it and move on. It will be celebrated for what it is. And I think Grand Theft Auto 6 has a really high chance of being that. Red Dead Redemption 2 was that. That game was in... It's always complicated. This is like the Kingdom Hearts 3 argument when people are like, it took 17 years for Kingdom Hearts 3 to come. It really wasn't. It was like 12. Point being is, no, it didn't. They didn't start making Kingdom Hearts 3 as soon as Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. They made a bunch of other shit, and then they started development on Kingdom Hearts 3. It did take like 7 years for it to come out, but it didn't take 12. They released like fucking 5 Kingdom Hearts games in the in-between. You just didn't give a shit about them. But point being, Red Dead, even though it wasn't being made from the moment Red Dead 1 was done, Red Dead 2 did still take a long time to be made. And when it came out, it's incredible. And it mostly received the love that it should have. So I don't know if it really is that the best time is beforehand. Yes, it was still a good time for Red Dead 2 before it came out, but it's continued to be a great time for Red Dead 2 after it came out, because it turns out Red Dead 2 is just a fucking good game. It's well made and people enjoy it. And just like that, people are still talking about Across the Spider-Verse because turns out it took forever to be made, but it's still really fucking good. It's cool. It's really a weird time, and I do actually I want to give you a chance to say what you want to say, but this is an oddly good segue into the next piece of news, in my opinion.
I won't go too long because you moved past it, but I am really impressed that you managed to move past saying The Fly is not a filler episode when it is the example everyone uses of a filler episode.
Bro, I think the Fly episode is incredible, and it does a lot for that show, and a lot for, dude, definitely the time in the show when it's happening.
I didn't say The Fly was bad. I said it was a filler episode when it is objectively a filler episode.
Fair enough. This is what I'll tell you though. Filler episodes can still be good, and then there can be
arguing that
really bad filler
that's
episodes.
Not possible.
Yeah,
because some of the best episodes of like Green Arrow and stuff like that are filler episodes. I like that. I like filler chapters where, like, you know, write the main characters going and partying just so I can, you know, have that experience of them before they go kill somebody else or whatever they're going to do. So yeah. That stuff is good. There's filler quests. I've played Bethesda games. They're all filler quests. It's great. I love it. Yeah,
and some of them are really good quests that are not the main quest, right? That's
Absolutely.
The interesting thing that you run through. And that, I think that was my amazement with Tainted Grail, is stumbling into something that by no means did the games think I was supposed to find. Like, I did that entire, for a lack of a better way to saying, the Assassin's Guild style setup. I did all of that, and you never even fucking found the person because it's not a quest marker. It's not, you just have to fucking look, explore, and find it. And
you're gonna love KCD2.
And there's an incredible storyline based around that, and that's cool. And I really do hope I love KCD2 and stuff like that. Is a big reason as to why I like those types of games, because stumbling into something that's quality is basically as good as the thing that you're actually supposed to be there for is incredible, because what it tells you is that you're also supposed to be there for this, even though it doesn't actually matter to the plot. And that's, I guess, what I mean by it's still not wasted. There are TV shows that I like. I'll give you an example. Almost every sitcom, and I really like sitcoms, almost every sitcom does a singing episode. I skip them every fucking time because they never matter. They never tell.
That's terrible.
Dude, most of the time I fucking loathe them. I'll usually, if it's a first time watching the show, I'll usually watch it, but on any rewatch, skip immediate. Recap episodes, also fucking hate. And I know that they always try to do this thing where like they interweave some new shitty storyline that tries to connect the reason why they're flashbacking, but I fucking hate those episodes. And it's just, hey, there's more Friends, so that you'll tune in and watch Friends and watch them flashback for 30 minutes so they can sell you fucking razors and shampoo. I know, but that is those are wasted episodes. But then there are good filler episodes. That's even true. One of the shows with the worst filler things ever is Dragon Ball Z in particular. And yet some of my favorite Dragon Ball Z episodes are filler episodes. They're really fucking funny and they're really good. Or sometimes it's just good fights. It's
here's a super hot take about that. I love this show. It's one of my favorite shows. I watch it all the time. The entire run of Supernatural is filler episodes, except for the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes.
Knowing what I know, and I've never even seen the show, knowing what I know that that's what the point of the show. The point of the show is, here's the goal. Argument, yeah. They don't do it till here.
Well, it's not even that. Like, you could skip, because the thing is, it shows a little bit of the consequences of the first 5 minutes shows the consequences of the last 5 minutes of the last episode, and the last 5 minutes set up the first 5 minutes of the next episode. And then it's like, oh, Sam and Dean go hunt a ghost, and then the ghost is related to their mom, and they have this trauma dump that they end while talking on the side while leaning against the car. Like, that's the show. You have to be into that. But I would also make the argument that 90% of shows are like that. I'm watching The Shield right now. I don't know if you've ever seen The Shield. Fantastic
very little,
show.
But I've seen it. Yeah,
fantastic show. I love it. But like, it was very apparent. It was like The Shield started with the first 5 minutes, and then holy shit, the last 5 minutes. And then the first 5 minutes, and then he does a drug bust, and then the last 5 minutes. That's what TV shows are. They're all filler episodes. The MCU is only like going for it. ABC. The story of the MCU is post-credit scenes. Yeah,
it's like, hey, here's scenario A, scenario B, and scenario C within the episode, and you're following each one. And a lot of shows do it where it's like the beginning, the main scenario has a lot in the beginning and a lot at the end, and a little bit of connective tissue in between, while you have these others. I would also say the best stories are the ones that know how to pull the small plots into the big one really well. And then you go, even though I know those were technically side stories, the fact that you're able to weave them into the main one to where they were able to brush against it. It's actually, you talked about Bethesda. One of the best things Skyrim does is that Skyrim storytelling lightly introduces you to people who are key figures in other storylines throughout the game, even though you're not intended to sidetrack off, but you can. And it introduces you to the people to do them, but they do actually matter for the story in which you're playing.
Well, it's funny because one of this metaphor is going crazy, but one of the best like arcs in Fallout 3 to me is kind of literally a filler part of the map where it's the cannibal town.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a quest. You don't have to engage in it. It doesn't tell you any of that, but you just find out about it. It doesn't relate to the main story. It's a filler episode, but it's awesome. That is an awesome filler episode.
Well, let's use the conversation that we were having about, waiting and time being okay if the final product's good. And that is for us to talk quickly about Pragmata. So Capcom has announced that Pragmata has sold more than 1 million copies in its first 2 days on sale. Again, this is a Video Games Chronicle article by Chris Scullion, and he says the sci-fi action adventure game was released on Friday and passed 1 million sales over the weekend, according to Capcom. In a statement to press, Capcom noted that because Pragmata is a new IP, it had to build early interest in the game in a number of ways to ensure it would sell well from the start, including the release of a demo long before the full release, and a Switch 2 port on day one rather than later in the game's life. Quote, a completely new IP, Pragmata was developed primarily by a team of younger Capcom developers who created an innovative gameplay experience by fusing action gameplay with puzzle elements set within a distinctive world ruled over by artificial intelligence, quote, Capcom stated. In the absence of an established fan base or pre-existing brand recognition, Capcom implemented a range of marketing initiatives, beginning with the early release of a playable demo to communicate the unique features of the game to a wider audience. In addition, in line with the company's multi-platform strategy, Capcom broadened the title's availability by adding support for Nintendo Switch 2 at an early stage. As a result, these initiatives generated significant momentum, enabling Pragmata to achieve worldwide sales of over 1 million units in just 2 days, despite being a completely new IP, marking a strong start for the title. So this is all coming from Capcom. That was one big, long quote. They end that by saying, moving forward, we will continue making every effort to deliver the appeal of Pragmata to an even broader audience. One of the things I think is neat about Pragmata is that I had, because of what Chris is kind of talking about, games taking forever or any kind of media taking forever, coming out and then not living up to the expectation, I had kind of relegated myself to, at some point early on, believe that Pragmata was going to be Capcom's PS5 deep down. It was going to be their new IP that never gets anywhere and doesn't come out, and it doesn't end up mattering. Then whenever it was clear that it was going to release, I was like, it may just be not a great game. And I kind of relegated myself to be prepared for that to be the reality. How great is it to see that a game that was shown off, 6 years ago now, Chris, is finally releasing, and turns out it's reviewing really well, selling really well, and it seems to be the start of a great new IP that, according to some people I've been talking to behind the scenes, not behind the scenes at Capcom, just people who I've been conversating with in private, the game seems to be doing some pretty new, fresh ideas instead of just being really good at. A good example that me and Velvet Thunder had said was, Mouse PI for Hire is not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's just trying to be a really cool looking Doom.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's exactly what I want from it. But it's cool that Pragmata is a game that seemingly took the time to be like, not only are we new IP with a cool art style and doing something new, we're also trying to do something interesting with the gameplay that's not the same thing you see all the time. And that's cool. I like that this seems to be going well for them. And I hope for Capcom that this doesn't become a thing where 6 months from now, it's kind of like, do you remember the period around Dragon Age Veilguard coming out where it was like the game reviewed really well and it sold immediately really well. And then the sales fell off a cliff and everybody was like, actually, Dragon Age Veilguard fucking sucks. And I haven't played Veilguard. I don't have an opinion. I want to throw that out there. But what I hope for Capcom's sake is that Pragmata is not enjoying that moment before it falls off of a cliff. I hope that this is the start of a strong continuation, and this is something new that they can continue to build upon if there are people within the company who do want to build on it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited to play Pragmata. I'm not picking it up for a while. But I would like to play it at some point. So
one of the things I like about Capcom is that a lot of their games that are more story focused tend to be shorter. And my hope is that Pragmata is like a 12 to 15 hour max length game.
I was talking to Joe when we were playing Marathon, and he said he played 1 day of it and he's halfway through. So
that's exactly
it's like
what I
6
want.
to 12 hours.
It says Pragmata takes approximately 10 to 12 hours to complete the main story.
That's what I meant, not 6 to 12 hours.
Yeah, he played for 6. Yeah, dude, one of the things that I already knew before going into Resident Evil 8, I think I told you this, part of the reason I chose it is because I haven't been playing games. I wanted to kind of bring myself back into it. And I've been meaning to play the game and in VR. So it's kind of an all-around a good way for me to do certain. I want to play games more. I want to play my VR more. I'm ticking a lot of boxes. But I'm excited for Resident Evil 8 because it's kind of, Capcom does a really great job of making every Resident Evil game feels like it's got a low barrier of entry. You can hop in, have your fun with it. It feels like an Uncharted of yore. You're going to play for 12 hours, have a good time, and bounce the fuck out. It's awesome. And then apparently, what I originally said was 8 to 12 hours, and apparently Resident Evil 8 is usually about 8 hours. Me playing in VR and being more exploratory, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes me 10. But that's exactly what I want. I say this with love because I know that the other game that I had the chance to play is KCD2, and I know that game is the exact opposite of a 10-hour short, sweet well-refined experience that's trying to do one thing, but I needed this right now more than I needed to hop into KCD2. I'm excited for KCD2, and I think it's doing what it needs to do, but I don't think me trying to jump back into gaming after kind of being mostly absent for a month was the right call for me to jump in with KCD2, in my opinion. So it's cool that Pragmata is trying to be the antithesis of most of the gaming industry and be okay with being a 10 to 12 hour game. Also, I want to know, how has Capcom continually managed to not get the scorn of gamers while continuing to release 8 to 12 hour games? Devil May Cry 5 is an 8 to 12 hour game that doesn't really, in my opinion, have excessive replayability. And yet that game rips, it's awesome, and it was praised. Every Resident Evil game is the same, praised. Resident Evil games are considered fairly replayable. I'll give them that. But somehow Capcom keeps making the 8 to 12 hour games I used to love, and nobody bitches about them not being like, I can't believe we're charging $70 for this. Okay.
Well, I mean, you want the real answer?
Yeah, go ahead. I really do want to know.
People are fucking hypocrites.
That's the unfortunate one.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. If Capcom's output was coming from PlayStation or Xbox or Ubisoft, we would be hearing complaining.
Dude,
and you did hear complaining against
for an 8 to 12
RE9.
hour Ubisoft game.
Yeah. But like there were those complaints going out with RE9 because I remember like Gene Park had said that he beat it like 9 times and his fastest run was like 2.5 hours. And people are like, oh, I'm paying $60 for a 2.5 hour game.
Resident Evil speed run?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
But people were kind of freaking out about it. And he's like, my first run took me like 21 hours. Like, it's not, this is my 9th run I did in 2.5 hours. I can run RE2 in like an hour.
Yeah.
But I've run RE2 like 23 times. Like, it's not, you know, you get your replay value out of it. So,
yeah, it's wild shit. I can't believe that people go through that. But I mean, I don't know. I think what it really is, and we're saying this as people who are on a podcast that's been running for 2 hours, people just like the sound of their own voice. But I think I think you can have your cake and eat it too there. I think you can do that and still try to approach it from a being reasonable standpoint. And I think it's really disingenuous that people go, hey, this 8 to 12 hour game is fine. This 8 to 12 hour game is bullshit and a waste of money, and it needs to be 40 hours minimum. And I hate that. That's one of many complaints, and I'm sure that I've been on the side of someone thinking I'm complaining about something, but I like to think that I usually am approaching these with a pretty measured and thought out standpoint of realizing what it is that's not working for me. And I also think I tend to say it's not a bad game, and it may not even be that it's not worth the money. It's just I don't care for it. I think one of the biggest problems is that people like to speak in generalities without clarifying. And I think, Chris, we both do this sometimes too, right? Where you like, no, this is what it is. And what you really mean by that is, I think that this game is bad for this reason. And it's not what we always say, or what we've found ourselves saying, which is when I say that a game is bad, I mean that the game is bad for me. It is not fitting what I like about games, and therefore it's not a good fit for me. So it's a bad game to me. But I think what I've had to realize is like, that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It just means it doesn't fit within what I want from a game. So it's doing a bad job at being a game I would enjoy, but it may be a well-made game that I can see why people would enjoy. That's why I think usually when a game is aggressively bad, we actually do go, no, hey, this game sucks. Like there's no refining, like, you know.
Part of it, steal this from politics a little bit. It's the video game horseshoe. Okay. Yeah. Right. So Capcom was on the bad end of the horseshoe. PlayStation was on the good end of the horseshoe for a while. Right. Mm-hmm. And we're right at the middle of both of these guys where PlayStation's fucking up, but still putting out decent stuff. And Capcom is no longer fucking up and putting out great stuff. And now we're meeting at the middle. And pretty soon it's just going to go back. It's just going to go back. Because Capcom has made mistakes with Monster Hunter, whatever the hell that was called, not living up to the hype. What was it called? Monster Hunter Earth? Wilds, sure, man. You know, that game not delivering what people wanted from it. So Capcom is not infallible, but we are seeing, as everyone loves to say, a resurgent Capcom. So I think Capcom to people still feels like Capcom is almost like, to me, and I don't even know if it's a bad thing. They're almost infantilized in the eyes of people because they were doing so badly for so long, right? To the point where people were expecting them to get sold, right? So now we're at a point where it's like, can you believe how good RE2 is? Can you believe how good RE4 is? Can you believe how they butchered RE3? Can you believe how good Pragmata is? Can you believe how good Devil May Cry is? Can you believe how good Monster Hunter Worlds is? Can you believe how mediocre Monster Hunter Wilds is? Right? So you're seeing kind of Capcom come from being shitty to being pretty good, right? It's like for me, when I see a baseball player I know suck do really well in Japan, it's like, I'm happy for you, Bobby Dahlbeck, you know? And it's kind of, in PlayStation was here where it's like, yep, we just expect Naughty Dog to do something good. So Last of Us doesn't land with everybody, shitty company. You know, Helldivers, second party, PlayStation didn't talk about it very much. Oh, imagine if PlayStation leaned into Helldivers, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, Marathon comes out, and I'm telling you, whether you choose to believe me or not, it has the best gunplay of any game ever. But it's not where people want it to be for Sony. So there you go. You lose. You start losing. So I think a lot of the reason
you say that because
Capcom
I think that
is okay.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that the way you do, because in a way, I do kind of look at it as when I think I said this when I was playing Resident Evil 8 and kind of reflecting on a lot of the Capcom games I love throughout the PS4 generation and even into the PS5 generation, and I remember thinking, like, you know, Capcom really turned around, because I didn't think Capcom was in a very good position during the PS3 era. And I think Sony was their strongest, in my opinion, in PS3 era. I'll give a good argument for PS4. They did a lot of great games in PS4. Cool. But their output was still pretty slowed down in the PS4 era in comparison to PS3. So I guess that's why I edged PS3 out. But I feel like late PS4, early PS5, PlayStation's been kind of in the range. And I think that's where Capcom was in the PS3 era. Actually, some Capcom games were actively bad, in my opinion. We can never forget that they did put out Dark Void. And Dark Void is just... Dark Void's not... It's not a terrible game. It is a mediocre game, if there was ever a mediocre game. I remember playing the demo and being like, if your demo isn't even fun and you can control the elements of the demo, you have completely fucked up. Yeah, you can hire Nathan Drake for a voice actor in your game. It doesn't make your game good, and I am sorry. I mean, and that's not. I mean, Capcom did put out Asura's Wrath on PS3. That was like a cool moment. But I thought Resident Evil 5 was kind of man. Resident Evil 6 was man. And there's other games like Raccoon City that fucking suck. Like Resident Evil was in the slumps in the PS3 era for damn sure. Devil May Cry 4 was kind of like an game for them. DMC did not do really well, and I actually thought DMC was a good game, but I kind of get why it got. I don't ever think it should have been shat on, but I get why it didn't pop off either. Like it was too big a swing in the direction. So it's just weird to see how. I think you're kind of right. Even if it's actually just how the companies are doing, there is kind of a horseshoe, and like they're just kind of passing each other, and they hit a point where they're both doing all right, and then eventually, it's weird, but I'm just glad to see Capcom doing well. That's all I'll say, because I do remember the rumors of them being sold. But I also remember rumors during my high school tenure where Nintendo was doing pretty bad when the Wii started kind of sloping down, and the attach rate was terrible, even though the Wii is like one of the best-selling consoles. It had very few games sold per console. And then the DS was tapering down, and then the 3DS started, and it didn't really do well. And the Wii U started, and it didn't do well. And people were like, oh, Nintendo's going to sell, and PlayStation's going to buy them. And I remember being like, crazy if true. And I think I drank the Kool-Aid a little more back then. I was like, that would be weird, but I guess it's possible because they're not doing hot, but clearly not going to happen. But you know what? We got one more piece of news that is actually fairly exciting because I quite like the last game. Metro 2039 is coming this year. A game, quote, fundamentally changed by Russia's illegal war. This is another Video Games Chronicle article by Jordan Midler. 4A Games has announced Metro 2039, and it's coming to PlayStation, Xbox Series X and S, and PC later this year. Developer 4A Games showcased the sequel for the first time on Thursday, and in a pre-brief attended by VGC, it said that Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, quote, fundamentally changed not only life at the Ukraine-based studio, but also had a major impact on the game itself. Sounds an awful lot like what we saw with what was that game called, Chris? Chernobyl. Stalker, yeah. Shadow of Chernobyl.
Yeah, Shadow of Chernobyl.
And that's a game I really meant to get around to too. That game looked really cool. I don't know if it was good or not, but maybe I'll get around to it this year. While much of the team remains in Ukraine, the development team is now spread across 20 different nations. The game's story will, quote, focus acutely on choices, actions, consequences, and the cost of securing a future, end quote. Quote, the meaning of our games has always been about preventing war, but now war is our reality, and our message has shifted to be about the consequences, said 4A Games. Everything we had planned for the next chapter of Metro changed in 2020, and more significantly in 2022. You can watch the reveal trailer for the new title below. That's, of course, what the article shows. I'm excited for this on concept alone. Since I've been so busy, and when I have a moment to do anything that is not the things that have been keeping my time occupied, I am trying to play games. So I've not actually seen the trailer for this, but conceptually, I love Metro Last Light. I love 2033. I really enjoyed Exodus as well. I am very down to see what they want to do here. I am curious to see how much they could change it, because I think each game continued to kind of revolution. In a weird way, 2033 and Last Light are pretty similar, but 2033 to Exodus almost feels like the jump from like The Witcher 2 to The Witcher 3. It's not quite that big, but it's like, they took a big change in how they did things. Chris, do you have any kind of affinity for the Metro series, or has it ever been something that you've dug into?
Metro's always been one of those odd ones where I always like what I've played, and I've never been drawn back to them.
Interesting.
I've spent like full days playing Metro 2033 and then never turning it back on again. And I don't know what that is. And I don't like
you buy in for the day.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it leaves your subconscious.
The Exodus one, I didn't think that one was good. So
I liked Exodus quite a bit, but it did change things. So I'm not ever surprised by people who liked one and not the other. It kept a lot of it, but the change towards being something a little more open hub was an interesting one. But I liked Exodus quite a bit. And dude, I have a screenshot from Exodus that is one of the most photorealistic screenshots I have ever seen. And I still don't understand how they did it. It's crazy, but it's a really good looking screenshot. That doesn't mean the game was great because it looked good. I liked it, and it happened to look insane in parts. Good for them. Because Metro has never really been a AAA game. It's more of a AA, high-end AA, but AA all the same. So, real quick, you play as the Stranger, a recluse haunted by violent waking nightmares, forced to undertake a harrowing journey back down to the Metro, a place he swore he would never return to. Again, I kind of like that because this is very different than the setup that we had in all the other games, and the other games continue to have Artyom kind of going through some stuff. This is a cool change up, and I think that if you want to consider the first three games a trilogy of sorts, I'm never a big fan of when you try and I don't say never. I think it's much more difficult to take a trilogy that was intended to be a trilogy and try to make a fourth game that then keeps all the same characters and do something with it, because it's really difficult to lower the stakes again. I think the best thing you can do is change the stakes by changing the people and changing the events a little bit, and then you get to set up new things so you don't go, well, why the fuck should I care about what Artyom's doing now after the events of Exodus, when all you're doing is kind of pulling it down some and restarting things. You can definitely do it. Some game series pull it off really well. I think God of War 2018 is a good example of it's okay as long as you're starting from a standpoint where you have a strong vision of what you want. But I'm excited. I'm going to watch this trailer, but not before I go and hop on and play some Resident Evil VR. So to round the episode out, Chris, you have anything else you want to say about Metro?
No, I'm happy for everyone who's looking forward to it.
I'll tell you that I was very excited about Metro Awakening, the VR experience. And I played like an hour, maybe an hour 15 of it a few months back. And I underwhelmed is maybe the best way I can say it. It doesn't mean it's a bad game and it may get better, but I was just kind of like, this is not the excitement that I thought it would be. And I don't know if it's one of those examples of, like I said before we started recording, or maybe while I was talking about Resident Evil 8, I think it was there, where it's like maybe the game didn't benefit from getting to be a Metro game with a VR mode rather than being a VR exclusive Metro, because I thought it would be like the Metro that I know and loved, where it's like you're going to be like going around the top side and doing these like areas, and there's going to be crazy creatures popping out of places, and you're going to have these beautiful environments, and they're going to be really interactive, and things are going to attack you, and your gas mask is going to break, and you're going to have to find a new one and keep up with your respirators and change them. And I thought all that sounded cool as a VR experience. And at least in the hour and a half I played, it's all taking place in the Metros, and none of those other little factors that make Metro kind of engaging were in the game at all. And I was like, oh, so this is just a mediocre first-person shooter with none of the charm that makes the Metro series actually interesting mechanically. That's kind of a bummer. And I don't know. I've never gone back to it. I still have it, and I kind of want to go try it again, but it doesn't breed a lot of excitement. So, but that also was not developed by the original developers. So, is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Tears what it is, my friend.
Tease what it tease, mate. We have one more question I want to get to, and I think it's a pretty quick one. This comes from Mr. Jehudi MD, longtime listener, longtime patron. And I mean longtime. Thank you so much, Jehudi. He says, welcome back. What is your favorite car, SUV, or truck? What's your favorite that you can afford? What's your favorite that you probably can't afford? Any preferences for EV, hybrid, or gas? Jehudi's questions are always like multi-layered. So let's start with the first thing, Chris. What's your favorite car, SUV, or truck? I feel like this question's kind of broad. Do you agree with that? Like,
yeah,
almost too
pretty
broad. Like, I almost wonder if he means like, what's our favorite car, what's our favorite SUV, and what's our favorite truck? But the way he did it was car/SUV/truck, which leads me to believe that you have to choose one. That is so hard.
I've always had an affinity for the original Chrysler 300 with the crazy grill.
Oh, yeah. The one that they eventually tried making the Charger look like in the long run.
Yeah.
And then it's like completely fucked up the style of the Charger.
Yeah. I would, if I had a car, if I could pick any car, I would get that car and just soup it up, and that would be my car because I think it looks so cool. But I'm not a big car guy, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you kind of the car is just a tool to take me from place A to place B?
It's more that, like, yes, to a degree, but like I've never understood why you would buy a Lamborghini because you can't drive it like a Lamborghini. Why do you need a Lamborghini to go to Stop and Shop? Like, genuinely, like, what's the point? To look cool?
I think it depends, right? My thought process on those is that if you have the money to afford a Lamborghini or a Porsche or any of these really expensive cars, you probably have the money and the means to be able to pay to drive them in the environments where it is illegal for you to drive them that way. The U.S. gets a little weirder. I mean, sometimes you think of places like Germany and like the Autobahn where it's like, that one kind of makes sense as to why you might buy some of these cars, because you can kind of do that on the Autobahn, which is cool. But in the US, it's like, okay, well, if you've got that money, you can go to like private tracks and things like that. You can spend the money to put you in environments where you can kind of let loose and let these cars be what they are. And it depends on why you bought it. Did you buy it because you wanted people to see you cruising around in a Lamborghini? Or did you buy it because you just want to drive a Lamborghini in the way that you wanted, that a Lamborghini demands to be driven? And if it's the latter, then doing it on a track without people around should be fine, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how
First of all, it costs 519 euros to go drive a fucking Lamborghini around a track. So anyone can afford that. Okay, not anyone. All right. But you get what I'm saying. It's affordable.
I'd agree. Yeah.
But again, I just like, there's the logic of if I have fuck it money, fuck it. But I just don't get it functionally. Like, I don't get what's fun about knowing, like my dad always used to say this, oh, my truck has 500 horsepowers. And it's like, okay, cool. We drive the same speed, dog. Like I've never gotten it.
See, it's funny because I think I am a car guy. Clearly, I think that's part of why I like Gran Turismo so much and racing games in general so much. But I'll tell you, I'm a car guy in a much more nuanced sense. And I'm a car guy in the way that I think most people are actually car guys. And that's going to sound weird, but I think once you back up a little, I think that there's a lot of people who are strictly like visual car guys. Like, what do they like to see? And that's a completely valid thing because cars are very visible. And since, like you said, a lot of people view them to go the same speed, the thing that differentiates them is feature set for like quality of life and what does it look like and what can you do to personalize it and customize it and make it look unique and like yours. I think that's what a lot of people care about. I do like those elements, but you know what I like more? I'm a big fan of, yeah, we all go the same speed, but I do it like little things like how does the car handle? How does it take the turn? How responsive is it as I'm driving? How responsive is it when I push the pedal to the gas? Or how easily, like, you know, I'm a big fan of driving a stick shift, and I miss my daily driver being a stick shift. My current vehicle is the first time I've had a vehicle that's not a stick shift in my ever, and it kind of bums me out because I fucking love stick shifts. It's just, it makes driving feel so tactile and fun. But it's little things like that. Like I used to have a Hyundai Veloster, which I love that car, and I wanted one, and I went and got it. That's, you know, my last couple of vehicles have all been cars that I wanted. And so I sought them out and I got them. It wasn't like, well, I need a new car. Oh, I kind of like this one and it fits the bill. There we go. I'm like, no, I like the Veloster. The Veloster Turbo specifically has a really nice grille. It's small. It has a short wheelbase, so it's real responsive. It's low to the ground, so it handles curves. And that kind of stuff is what I loved. And even though I'd go the speed limit most of the time, I liked how quickly I could get to speed. I liked how whenever I shifted, it felt good moving through it. You can feel the turbo kick in. It's things like that. Like, that's the thing I like about cars. And then you go to the flip side of it, right? My current vehicle is a Ford Bronco, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out there. That is the car I wanted. It did mean that to be responsible, I had to also trade in my Veloster that was paid off because I don't really have a spot to keep the Veloster and I don't need it. And so I made the choice of using the equity that was still in it while it was valuable to get this new thing. But conversely, there's a lot of things I love about the Bronco. The way it takes turns is way different. It's not nearly as sporty and aggressive, but it's comfortable, floaty. It's somewhere between driving like a boat on the road, like my F-150 that I had as a work truck forever did. It kind of felt like driving a boat on the road. It was just like really easy to drive, and that was comfortable. But I like that the Bronco is kind of the best of both worlds, and it has so many options. And I like the things that it can do that my other car couldn't. I like how high up it is and how easy it is to drive, and the four-wheel drive and what that allows me to do with it. I love the way the body shape looks. I'm a huge Bronco fan. 95 Ford Bronco is like my fucking cream of the crop. I wish they weren't so expensive because I would have one as just a vehicle to have because I love it. The problem with that is I'd have a lot of vehicles if I had fucking money like you're talking about. Like, for example, I think this question gets a lot more complicated when you go, are we talking about new cars and what's on the market right now as a new thing, or all time? Because like one of my favorite cars, I have such a weird affinity for the Fox body Mustang from the late 80s into the early 90s. I fucking love that. It's some people's most hated Mustang because it kind of looks the least like a Mustang of most Mustang models, but I fucking love it. It's got like the late 80s, early 90s, like I don't call it boxiness, but it's got like angular features to it, and it's just got such a cool little aggressive look to it that I love. And if I could have if I had fuck it money, I'd have one of those. But then also, I don't quite fit. I'm a huge fan of the way that the Mazda Miata, the little MX-7s look. Those cars are sick. I'm too tall. I have to drive them with the top down, and my head sticks. Like my line of sight is on the A-frame, like the A-pillar for the front windshield. It is not a good idea for me to drive one, but I love them. They drive really well. I think they're super sporty looking. They're one of my favorite cars to choose in like racing games. I have one that's tricked out in Gran Turismo because I love the car. I think it's super cool. So I get to live out my fantasy of being able to drive one in Gran Turismo. So my answer for favorite current vehicle, I love the new Ford Bronco. I think it's really cool. It's not as cool as the original Bronco, but I like it quite a bit. And I could afford it, even though it's very expensive. And I've already paid mine off. I paid it off 2.5 years into having it. That's kind of my answer. What I can't afford, ironically, is a 95 Bronco. And I can, but it's so irresponsible because it's like $20,000 for one that's in shitty shape. And if you want one that's in great shape, it's like 35 to. You could buy a new Bronco that doesn't have a bunch of miles on it.
I'll tell you, the one car I've always really liked. I get part of this is like, I'll just say, like, I don't like to drive, so.
Oh, I love it.
Like, that's part of it.
I think depending on where you live, I can see why some people, like if I lived in Dallas, I'd hate to drive. Chris, you came and visited here. You know how easy it is to drive here. I enjoy driving here. I don't enjoy driving when I get into Dallas. Like when I went to go pick you up, I did it because I can. It's fine. It is not my ideal scenario.
When I took Sadie to that concert, that was Spirit Box and whatever.
Oh yeah.
I told her, I'm like, I will pay for everything, but you have to drive. I will not drive in the city. She drove the whole time. I was like, I'm not doing it. Subaru Baja. I love that car. I think it's so cool, and they don't make it anymore. But if I were to spend money on a car, I would buy a Subaru Baja right now.
Oh, dude, see, cars that they don't make anymore, that they still sort of make. Toyota shut down the Scion branch that they had. That was like the spinoff from Toyota, and they had some really odd cars. Like for a while, I had a Scion TC. A 2008
toaster.
Mine wasn't the Cube, the toaster dude, the QA or whatever it was. Mine was the 2008 TC, and I liked that car. The factory clutch on it was really heavy, and the car had a lot of torque immediately. So you could, like, as you're going to let off the clutch, it's so heavy that it's like pushing back up quick as you let pressure off of it. And so as you go to hit the gas, you'd accidentally peel out. Like I do it all the time. Which is interesting. It can kind of make you look like a douche on accident too. But it wasn't like, woo! It was just like, woo! And then it'd get traction and start going. And I like that because it just was, again, very responsive. It was engaging. As soon as you're letting off the clutch and hitting the gas, it's going, and you're about to have to shift in the second. And it was just a really good feeling car. But one of my favorite cars that, again, I'm not really a good fit for because I'm too tall. I like a lot of small cars, unfortunately. There's a thing where they do like a joint commission on cars. A lot of companies have done this in the past. Mitsubishi's Eclipse was a joint commission with Chrysler, where there was an Eagle Talon, which was made by Chrysler, and then there was the Mitsubishi Eclipse. Like I said, were there. And then they kept making the Eclipse while eventually the Eagle Talon brand went off. I think there was one other, maybe it was a Pontiac or something they used it. I can't remember. The Scion had one with Subaru that was the Subaru BRZ, which they still make, if I'm not mistaken. The Scion FRS, which is the car that I fucking love. And then there's the Toyota 86. They're all built on basically the same frame, same motor. That's how it works. But they all have slight differences in the way that they approach body stylings to give them their own thing. I always said the BRZ looks like a car that's smiling at you because they choose to use curves going upwards to a flat line. So it looks like a happy car. And I like the BRZ. It's a cool car. The FRS used the opposite. You flip it and it's curving downward to like a broadened out stance. And you're like, okay, this car looks aggressive. And the headlights are a little more leaned in. And the Toyota 86 is kind of somewhere in between. The FRS is such a sharp looking car that every time I see it, I'm like, holy shit, I love this car. And to this day, I'll see them and I'm like, dude, I kind of just want one that's like a little project car. Like, they're so cool, but it's so irresponsible to have. Definitely when I have a kid and a house that needs a lot of, dude, yeah, Subaru makes some crazy shit. I'd get a BRZ if I could, again. But here's the thing. If I'm going to buy one of those, I'm buying the FRS. That's the one I fucking want. It's a cool car. Speaking of that, dude, the Eagle Talon. My dad used to have an Eagle Talon that I fucking loved. I had an Eclipse for a while, and I did like the Eclipse, but I like the Eagle Talon more. Those are cool. The 90s models of those are really cool because, like, the 99 model in particular is like a really kind of the design is cool, but it's got a modern enough amenities that you like. Like, it still have, well, I may be speaking things but it's still got like a fuel injected engine and all the things that you'd expect for a modern thing. It uses like a coilover pack for the spark plugs and whatnot, but you have a lot of things that are modern that are easier to work on than, I'll say easier. They're more akin to modern vehicles than passive, like, in a weird way. Old cars that have like carburetors are kind of stupidly easy to work on. They're just big and kind of clunky, but they're really easy to work on. But if you don't know anything about them, they're just as confusing. So it's just like, what do you want? And they're super inefficient because they weren't, like, that's what fuel injection's purpose was, to be efficient with the fuel use. All that to say, I clearly quite love cars, but it's like choose your hobby, and I don't have
Right.
enough time to be an active car gearhead as much as I would love it. So instead, I choose to always have a car that I like, that I every time I go to get in the car and drive it, I'm like, I'm so glad I have this. Dude, I've had my Bronco for coming up on 3 years, and I still love it just as much as the day I bought it. I love it. It's awesome. And I felt that way about my Veloster the entire time I had it. I only got rid of it because I needed a family vehicle that could do like trips and stuff. The Veloster is a 3-door car. It is not good for you've seen Kyrie. She's not even 11 yet, and she's like 5'7", 5'6". She's going to be a tall girl. I'm glad I got rid of the Veloster when I did, because she would not have continued to fit in the back seat. Not happening. So
Smart.
The only thing we didn't answer here is, do you have a preference for EV, electric vehicle, hybrid, or gas? I'm going to say I've actually never driven an EV, and I really want to, because I want to see what that immediate response is, that you hit the pedal and it's immediately going and there's no delay, no spool up. But I'll tell you, conceptually, it's bad for the environment. In many ways, I understand that. Dude, I am a sucker for a gas wasting hot rod. Like, dude, those big bellowing old, like my inline 6 I used to have, which was not a big bellowing, but that engine was awesome. Terrible gas mileage, but like a 429 and a 460 that just drink gas, but they're like crazy. That shit I love. And conversely, I also like my little Veloster. It was like one of those sporty, like I love the sound of an engine spooling up and the sound of like clutching and letting a turbo let off. And those are all things that you can't get with an EV. And so while the cool aspect of an EV being like immediate foot response seems cool, I think I would like that while actively missing the aspects that make a gas motor so cool. Like you feel them more, and I like that.
I don't have an answer.
You clearly don't give a shit.
I do not care. I'm sorry.
You clearly don't care.
I don't. But I will say I did like the gas mileage on my brother's diesel VW, so I would go with a diesel because I got like 50 miles to the gallon.
Oh, dude, yeah, the diesel Jettas and shit get great gas mileage.
It was a diesel Jetta.
But it's also kind of a terrible time for that right now, because diesel here is like $5.70 a gallon.
Yeah, but again, like I feel like it's a sticker shock thing, but it's way better to spend on diesel.
Oh, dude,
you're getting significantly more.
Like the problem with that is, like, if you have a diesel truck, you're still getting the same gas mileage and you're just paying way more
for sure.
Yeah.
But like if it was me, if I was going to get a diesel, I would buy a diesel VW, get like 50 to the gallon, spend
bounce off
$30 more every 3 weeks instead of what I pay now every week.
Yeah, if anything, even if you break even, it's like it's nice spending the same amount of money over a longer period of time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You spend the same more, but like it's less time you're buying gas.
Oh, and you might even just break even by nature of, if you're getting effectively double the gas mileage, even if diesel's double, you're breaking even, right? So it's fine.
Exactly.
And diesel's not quite double right now. It's under, but that is the one downside when you think about negatives of stuff. I love my Bronco, but 18 to a gallon, which my Veloster was like a little car. Everybody was like, that thing must get like 35 to a gallon. No, that thing got 24 to a gallon. It wasn't very fuel efficient either, even though it was small and sporty. It's also the first time. That's the only time I've ever had a 6-speed manual transmission, but that was pretty cool. I actually kind of like that. All that said, Chris, thanks for joining me, man. It's good to be back on the podcast. Brother. We'll come back next time and see if Chris has been playing anything that he's excited to actually talk about.
Good luck.
Okay. With that said, if you want to support the show by heading over to patreon.com/Nartech and giving us a little $1 per month, we encourage you to do so. It helps us continue to do the show without digging into our own pockets. We like to be upfront. I don't have enough time in order to do exclusive content on it. So what we really landed on is just, we hope that people like the show enough to want to support it and help us be able to keep the show going. And enough of you have continued to do that over time that it's been easy for us to do. So one thing that we do for our patrons is at the end of every episode, we shout them out as the least that we can do. So without further ado, we'd like to shout out the Boorish Boar, Grime Kid 1989, FR Damian Quigley, Ryan Goldner, Nate Cole, Spencer, Brandon Edwards, Alex, Barry Rogers, Stingray X, Matt Tubbs, Sean Easton, Bailey Robertson, TT Dog 666, Kevin Bacon Bits, Danny Villalobos, Jehudi MD, No Fate, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, and San Santarud. Thanks to each and every one of you, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.